This is another one that's tragic. Yes. And you have people who are starving on the street, and then you got the people that are promoting the vaccines that offer them a meal to get a vaccine. It's tragic. It's sad. It's so sad. They're completely advantaging the hunger and sorrow and suffering of another to put a poison into their body. That tells you how horrific and horrible are the controllers that run this world. This lays it out to you.
Maxwell and Atlantis, and how that basically helps us to decipher Jeffrey Epstein's fundamental motivations on a more esoteric and occult level. So those are all sources that I drew from to compose this piece. And then of course the title of the piece, Ocean Outlaw, comes from a book called Outlaw Ocean, which is written by Ian Urbina of the New York Times. And this guy, this New York Times reporter, basically spent months on a pirate ship learning about international piracy and how the extraterritorial waters, how the international waters that are outside the jurisdiction of any one nation state are used as a territory for various, extrajudicial activities, okay? And Ghislaine Maxwell was fascinated by this guy's initially series of articles in the New York Times, which were then subsequently adapted into this book, Outlaw Ocean. And during her days running the Terramar Foundation that she set up, she actually interviewed Ian Urbina herself. And, if you can manage to dig through the piles of sex trafficking garbage that there are on the internet, you might find the needle in the haystack of Ghislaine Maxwell's interviews with Ian Urbina, which are very revealing, I think, of her motivations and her outlook. But I think the salaciousness of the, sex trafficker, underage prostitution ring narrative has been used to cover up what's really going on, and that it is fundamentally a diversionary tactic. When you're a very successful, well-connected businessman, and your interests align with the interests of an intelligence service, or with the interests of a country that has a powerful intelligence service, you can be a witting collaborator and sort of facilitator for that agency. And I think, in fact, that's what Jeffrey Epstein was. And we can get into that. We'll go back and get into this in detail. But as I understand it now, even more so than when I wrote that piece, Ocean Outlaw, I think that Epstein was a sort of witting collaborator and high-level facilitator, both for the CIA and for the Mossad. I don't think he was an agent or an asset of either of those agencies. We've discussed, how the moon is hollow and there are like overlords, managing the socio-political systems of Earth from the moon, and, Atlanteans hiding out under Antarctica, and, the Nazi angle in terms of the whole UFO phenomenon and so forth. But there's something about the Epstein scandal which connects those very high level, or you could say very deep level operations to a much more mundane, scummy stratum of human life, right? In a way that's particularly disturbing and also dangerous. Dangerous from a legal standpoint, and dangerous in terms of how much of it involves organized crime. I mean, we know what mafias do.
Yes.
Okay. So there has yet to be an interview that I've gone into where I felt uncomfortable about the subject matter. This is the first one. So if people notice, a slight, Cheney-esque parsimoniousness and restraint, that's why. It's not a subject matter I really wanted to talk about. But here we are. Okay, so yes, I met Jeffrey Epstein on one occasion.
Stephen locked the doors.
Folks, we have a Jewish mafia in this country, okay? Like, have you seen Godfather? The character that was called Hyman Roth in Godfather, remember that? The Jewish mobster who's very close to the Corleone family and did business with them. That guy who's portrayed as, Hyman Roth in Godfather is actually Meyer Lansky. Meyer Lansky, he was from Eastern Europe originally, but he was a New York mobster who was in the casino business and had a lot of developments in Las Vegas and then also in Miami.
Cuba, right?
He was involved with, the Corleones and elements of the CIA in trying to bring about regime change in Cuba because he had lost casino assets in Cuba.
Right.
And wanted to change the regime so that he could open up Cuba economically again, right? Anyway, Meyer Lansky is a New York Jewish mobster with an extensive crime syndicate, okay, with many tendrils. And he used to like to recruit smart Jews from Brooklyn.
Mr. Lansky, what does the name Jewish Mafia mean to you?
I never heard that until I read it in the Israeli newspapers. Why, it's most ridiculous.
Are there many Jews in the gambling business?
But when you say many, you'd have to judge by percentage. I think if you took the percentage of the gambling business in the United States, took the Jews, you would find them maybe in that proportion.
Why is it said that you are the head of the organized crime in the United States?
Well, it's the same principle that started the other gossip. That's most ridiculous. It's the news media again. It's the follow-up of the first thought. It was never said about me before years ago. All this came about just in the last few years. I didn't know as I was growing older it's going to get worse.
Is there an organized crime?
Is there? I have no knowledge of it.
Are you a religious Jew?
No, I'm not a religious Jew.
And what
But I am a Jew. In my heart.
Jeffrey Epstein's a Coney Island kid. He's a smart Jew from Brooklyn, all right? And when he got involved in the late 90s eugenics program by the 1930s, it had begun in the 1890s. And all the aristocrats in America were for it. All the top judges were for it. All the top politicians were for it. The heads of all the universities were for it. They're all ardently pro-eugenics people. I document this in my book, Closer Encounters, in the chapter titled Nordic Breakaway Civilization. And I show how the idea of a Nordic master race comes from the United States of America, and it was copied by Nazi Germany. And the American elites who believed in this ideology created Nazi Germany in the first place. They're the ones who organized it, financed it, structured it. And then in 1945 to 47, they brought home all the chickens who had roosted, for all those years in that field laboratory that we set up, together with, uranium that we put in the bomb dropped on Hiroshima that was, enriched at Auschwitz. Okay, so one very important thing to understand in terms of Epstein and these accusations about, Jewish intelligence penetration in the United States and so forth is that the deep state of this country is Nazi. So you're a Jew who grows up in Brooklyn, right? Epstein's from Coney Island. And maybe at some point you meet Meyer Lansky, who's recruiting exceptionally intelligent and, how can you put it? Shrewd, maybe ruthlessly intelligent young Jewish people. And you wind up getting introduced to somebody like Donald Barr at the Dalton School, who belongs to this deep state CIA power structure. And Donald Barr introduces you to a bunch of other people. Dalton parents get you set up with investment banking firms and so on and so forth. And you start to understand, especially as somebody who's into science fiction and frontier thinking, was Epstein, absolutely was. Obviously, he read Donald Barr's sci-fi book, all right, because he modeled certain aspects of his operation on it. But just generally, Epstein was interested in the most fundamental scientific questions, like, for example, conquering gravity. One person that I neglected to mention at the outset in terms of a source for my research on Epstein is Eric Weinstein. Eric Weinstein has done a lot to expose Epstein's interest in anti-gravity. He was obsessed with it. He brought all the top physicists from all the leading institutions in the world, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, MIT, the French equivalents of those academies, together at a conference that was titled Conquering Gravity. And we have the roster of the people who spoke at that. And he brought some of these people to his island, and he took some of these scientists also out in the submarine, the Atlantis submarine, to study gravitational anomalies.
Jeffrey did?
Yeah, and Ghislaine Maxwell, she was the submarine pilot. Down to study gravitational anomalies in what we call basically the Bermuda Triangle. He would take physicists down there to study that because okay, if gravity doesn't work the same way here, maybe there's something here that's a key to understanding how to conquer gravity. So he was interested in these things. So you have these interests from, early on, and you start to see how the world works. And you start to see what you can gain access to and what you can't gain access to, okay? Now, another very important element of this story is, Epstein's relationship with Robert Maxwell, which then leads to his relationship with Robert's daughter, Ghislaine Maxwell. Robert Maxwell, by the way, is a fake name, okay?
Right.
It's entirely made up. He was born Jan Ludwig van Hoch, and he was from a town, kind of peasant town that has crossed borders like multiple times because of the changing borders in that part of the world. At one point, it was part of Ukraine. And I think at the time when he was born there, it might have been part of Czechoslovakia, which is going to be relevant because when he comes from a dirt poor family, peasants basically. But he was exceptionally intelligent and resourceful, and apparently very, courageous and dashing person. He became a special forces intelligence operative during World War II, fighting against the Nazis as a resistance fighter. And so the fact that he was in Czechoslovakia is relevant because remember, again, the Skoda works, Hans Kammler's facility where they were building the Bell was also in Czechoslovakia. And in the first phase of the defeat of Nazi Germany, when military intelligence operatives were clearing out German sites all across the Reich, he participated in that. And at that point, he made up a fake name for himself, Ivan de Maurier. I think it was based on some cigarette brand he liked to smoke. And so he's operating as a military intelligence guy in the area where the Bell was being constructed and helping the Allies to examine German sites and clear them out and stuff. And he makes it all the way to Britain. He becomes actually, I think he might have gone back in Czechoslovakia and operated in that area later because at one point late in the war, he makes it to Britain through France and he becomes basically an MI6 operative. Okay, they recruit him. And I guess he learns English very quickly, very fluently. Eventually, he became a British politician. So, and adopted the name Maxwell to fit into, British high society more effectively. So he gets recruited by MI6 after having worked as a sort of freelance military intelligence guy, and then having been a member of the French Resistance for a while, which is interesting because, I believe Ghislaine Maxwell was born in Paris and is originally French by nationality. And then later she winds up getting a degree in French literature. That's what she studies in university. So he was a member of the French Resistance against the Nazis. And then he winds up being recruited by MI6 and settles down in Britain, where eventually he develops these corporations and becomes a British politician, right? Now, for whatever reason, and I could speculate as to why, his experiences, during and immediately after the war compel him to take over the Springer Scientific Journal Publishing Company. There's this company, it's still called that to this day, but he took over Springer, which published most of the top scientific journals in the world, and he amalgamated it to, subsumed it under this company he called Pergamon. And why did he pick this name, Pergamon? Well, everybody talks about the Library of Alexandria, but there were many cities, not many, there were a few major cities in the classical world that were known for their libraries and as places of science and erudition and technological innovation and so forth. And one of them was Pergamon.
Throne of Satan.
Well, the Christians demonized it as the throne of Satan because, like the way the Christians skinned Hypatia of Alexandria alive. Hypatia was the guardian of the library at Alexandria and the head of the academy. And under Bishop Kirill, the Christians skinned her alive.
What?
A Christian mob attacked her, and she was the first person to be skinned alive and then burned as a witch. Okay?
What was her name?
Hypatia of Alexandria.
Hypatia?
Yeah, it's the first witch killing in Christian history.
Whoa.
The woman was the equivalent of we don't even have it's like, imagine if she were running Harvard and, Brookhaven National Laboratory at the same time.
Right.
She was, as a woman, the head of the scientific establishment of the world at that time. So they made an example out of her. Women have no business.
What year would that have been?
In the early 400s, I believe. When Alexandria and Pergamon and Corinth and other centers of learning in the ancient world were lost, we lost about 98% of the knowledge that the West had at that time. Okay? Studies have been done to show this, from classical references to texts that no longer exist.
And 99% of the text that was in the library was Greek.
Right.
Hey, y'all. Welcome. Big intro there. We're going to be making a lot of connections today. I have to tell you that I'm walking into this show a bit bummed. I have some difficult situations going on in my family, and would love your positive energy sent my way, please. I would appreciate it. I can't give any details about it due to the sensitivity and nature of the situation. But I just would ask that you guys just send me and my family some good energy today. I would appreciate it. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Atlantis. I'm going to get here to the comments momentarily. But what I'm wanting to do today is I am wanting to initiate you guys into a connection point between Atlantis and now. Because all of us have been raised with the idea that history really began with when humankind came here. And we know that that is not true, that the planet was around a lot longer than us. And we know that Atlantis was a major civilization on this planet that wasn't, in the larger scheme of things, a terrible distance from us in time. Obviously, there was empires before Atlantis, but Atlantis was the big one. And as we'll look at today, it really was the setup for our current situation and some difficult to talk about subjects that deal with the races of human beings, that deal with our skin color, that deal with subjects that are really touchy. And so I want to, it's a lot like if you were to go into a church and start talking about the connections of the church and the KM. It's a touchy thing. And if you start talking about that kind of thing to people who are highly devoted religiously, you can, with just a few words, turn the situation into a pretty rough one. And so what I'm going to try to do is to eliminate the riffraff, the cover stories, and try to get to the core of why things are the way that they are. That's really the reason for studying Atlantis, is to begin to understand why things are the way that they are. And everything that we know about Atlantis is sketchy. It's sketchy stuff, as well as there has been an enormous world-girdling empire that has done everything in its power to keep you from knowing about it and to keep you unaware of the deeper storyline. And so all of us are covered in egregores, assumptions, conclusions that are based on false narratives. And I'm not here to say that my narrative is the correct one. I'm saying that there are other narratives to consider besides the one you've landed on. And it might be a good idea, as we're getting into the Great Awakening, to open your mind to new ideas, further concepts, and to deepen and enrich your understanding of what it means to be a human being, what it means to be on this planet, because this planet has some characteristics and attributes that are, I think, in my own opinion, pretty unique to this situation and make it pretty difficult, not only to see the truth, but to actually live it and to actually truly understand it. And so this really is my motivation with Atlantis. It is not to just bring you a bunch of really cool, quote unquote, facts about it or ideas about it and to kind of initiate you just with new information, but rather really bring you into the fold of seeing not only what Atlantis was, but really how does its morphogenesis carry into our society now? Because it really does. It really does. It was a tee up. It was a tee up. And the more I delve into it, the more I understand why people like Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and these nefarious individuals that are now our modern history, it really gives insight into why they were pursuing it and what they were going after. So it's going to be a good night tonight. Let's go to comments and let's see how you guys are doing here. And let's bring up your comments onto the stage. I'm going to go to the bottom and let's see how you guys are doing. Thank you so much, Rosa. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, they do. Hi, rulers. Welcome. Hi, Shan. It's good to see you. Oh, you didn't pop up like you said here. Hey, Shan. It's good to see you, my friend. Ben, glad that you're here, my friend. Glad that you're here, my friend. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Hey, Fortune. How's it going? I'm working on the little project that we're doing together right now, and I wasn't able to get it done before today, so we'll get it done next week. Hi, John. Welcome. Glad that you're here, friend. Hi, Biker Chick. Nice. It is fascinating stuff. I love talking about Atlantis because I love talking about human history because I love human beings. Thanks, Ben. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate that very much. Hi, Pablo. Very cool. Very cool. I'm speaking of Pablo, I'm missing F1. We got a 1 month wait, and it's kind of a bummer, but all good. Hi, Shannon. Thanks for being here. Appreciate your being here. Thank you. Yeah, ask your questions in all caps. If you guys want to get off here with a couple of questions, get started here with a couple of questions, let me know, and I'll be able to kick that off. Maybe something will lead into what we're going to initiate the evening with. I've got some great Hermeticism we're going to be looking at a little bit because Hermeticism comes out of Atlantis. It's one of the things you guys are going to learn tonight. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you're looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to presenting the material. Thanks, Linda. Good vibes to you, love. And I still love your dog. Love it when you guys have your pups and your kitties in your picture. That's always good. Hi, Mother Nature. Hi, Prophet. Welcome. Hello. Yeah, this is pretty crazy. We've got a few. I think Atlantis is a much wanted subject that people like to talk about. I think because people know inside that there's something there. There's something there. You know, I found that music off of YouTube. I have the name of it at the intro's beginning. I will play that for our postlude tonight. It's a good intro outro for today. So I'll play it later and you can check it out. I don't have memorized where it came from, but I've got the names and everything you need to find it at the I'll have that during the postlude. Thank you. Appreciate that. Mythological Muse. I appreciate that very much. Nice. Thank you very much, Lighthouse. I'm looking forward to presenting it. Okay, will do. Will do. Yeah. Atlantis is like us. The parallels between Atlantis and us is pretty uncanny. The only thing that's really differentiating us is the lack of the high technology that Atlantis had. They were running a pretty interesting organization on Atlantis, a pretty fine line to run on. And the fact of how badly they ruined, meaning destroyed Atlantis and destroyed the planet, gives you an idea of how threatening Atlantis had become in certain ways. We're going to look at that tonight. Thank you. Appreciate that. Especially from Oz, for sure. Right on. Okay. Sorry, you guys are, we are rolling tonight in comments. This is great. What do you got, Lane? Hi, Lane. Welcome back. Chuck, my pups and I are so happy for this evening and hearing you bring the truth. We appreciate your message. Thank you. I don't know if I bring the truth. I'm glad you think I do, but I bring the truth as I understand it, love. So I promise you, I will tell you everything that I know as best as I can. Yeah. It could be in the Atlantic Ocean. It could be in the just south the Gulf of America, but I think it's in the Atlantic, or was. How does your timeline align with Tartaria Atlantis? Really well. Really well, actually. One of the reasons why I became so attracted to talking about Atlantis is because it was within the Cassiopean narrative. There are two kind of basic narratives that are similar in scope and phase and delivery. And that would be the Law of One under Ra, and then the Cassiopean delivery from Laura. And these two things talk about a very similar, much larger timescape that we have been enduring and are within. And so the way I've been talking to you guys and teaching you guys, the whole Cassiopean and Atlantis and Law of One really align well together. They go really well together, like peas and carrots, and they naturally go together. And so, because of that, I've grown. I have a great fondness for what they have to say about our history, and I think it's helpful, and I think it's hopeful, And I think it is reasonable. I think it's palatable. I think it has a lot of characteristics that really make it help the world make sense to a lot of people. And that really is its asset. And you guys know from the talk we had about Parzival and how much Parzival has meant to me as far as the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell. These things all work together. They all work together. And so all of this stuff has really been homogeneous in how it works with my philosophy. That has been a big surprise and a big relief, to be honest with you, Ben, to be really honest with you. Okay. Hey, hi, Verbal. Welcome back, friend. Thanks for always being here. Chuck, I propose the acronym CTH as a subset of STO, service to others, with CTH standing for catalyst to healing. Good. I like that. I do. I like that, high verbal. And one of the things that I think it's real important to always remember, guys, is that these are just terminologies. We don't have to stick with STS and STO, but we talk about that because it's a common reference, a common denominator of differentiating this dichotomy of polarities. And as you know, the world is delivered in polarities. It's delivered in positive and negative energies. And these permeate all things. And this is why the motivation of the universe comes out of that dichotomy. The reason the universe grows and expands and even became was because of that polarizing dichotomy, which brings the ether into a recognizable experience in time and space so that you as a 3D individual can have a personal experience. And the field that brings that about, that evokes that awareness experience, comes out of duality. And the problem with duality is that it's really catchy. It's really addictive because it's got these dynamisms of super highs and super lows. And you as an experiencer, that's your main role in life, is to experience. That's attractive. It's sort of like if you're hungry, when you come around food that smells really good and looks really good, you're attracted to it and you want to eat the food. And experience is the same thing. Personal experience is the same thing to a spirit, because your true identity is a spirit. And so you're very attracted to the personal experience because there's no differentiation in the spirit world. There's no form. And so when you're presented with a field of energy or a field of layers that concern personal experience, it's just like being hungry and walking into a field and smelling a big, barbecue or something going on. It's going to make you hungry, it's make you want to eat. And being in 3D makes you want to experience. And so as a spiritual being, having that individuated experience is very tantalizing. And so you can get caught in it. And when you get caught in it, you begin to develop what's called karma, which is the result of the turbulence that you put into life as you pass through it. Just like a car passing through a highway and the air turbulence is coming off of that car because of the car's speed, inertia, shape, and so on and so forth. And because of your personality, your emotions, your shaping, how you see the world, you create turbulence in the spiritual world the same way a car creates turbulence in the material world. And so experiencing these two dynamisms as a spiritual being is both, get this, is both enlivening, but then it also destroys you because it's your opposite. And holding that tension of the spiritual and material is the experience of life. That's why the head is at the point of tension at the cross. The heart is the point of transformation. So when you see a cross with a human on it, if the cross point is at the heart, the concern is the heart and transformation. If the cross point is at the head, the concern is realization and holding the tension of the two polarities that the mind realizes as the mind experiences the time and space illusion. It's pretty heavy. So Atlantis ties into that. We're going to look into that. We're going to be really checking that out. Okay. I would not say that alcohol is an antiseptic for a wounded soul. I think it's a good numbing agent, but I don't think it's a good antiseptic. Yes, they are. That all ties into Atlantis. Shall we get going with the conversation, or should I continue answering a few questions? What do you guys think? I'll leave it up to you tonight. What do you think? You guys want to get going on the lecture? Hello, Clintrons. Welcome back. Glad you're here. Thank you for being here. We can get rolling if you want. Okay. Lecture time. Looks like Biker Chick's ready to go. You guys ready to go? Let's get started with the lecture. Okay. Here we go. We're going to pull out of comments here. Let's go to media assets. And of course, I left a comment up. It wouldn't be me. Thanks, Troy. I appreciate that, friend. Okay, media assets. So today, let's go to here at a stage. Today we are talking about Atlantis. Hang on a minute. Why is that? Okay, we're good. We're good. Okay, so today we're talking about Atlantis. And what I want to do to introduce this subject, next slide. Why are you being kind of funky, Mr. Computer here? Why are you being kind of funky? Remove. There, okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, here we go. Atlantis. Now, why would I want to open up with the 7 principles of Hermeticism? And that is because Atlantis, this idea of these 7 principles comes out of Atlantis. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but the theory is that spiritual agency called Thoth or Ra or Hermes Trismegistus or the Divine Pymander, these are all costumes for a priest or priests or a collective, an STO collective that came out of Atlantis. And the theory is that Hermes or Thoth or Ra or any one of these characters were gods or beings or very powerful human beings that lived on Atlantis during the time of the flourishing of Atlantis. And we'll look at a timeline here in a minute. And that the thought is that all of alchemy, hermeticism, all this kind of ancient technology that was, remember, twisted by the Masons, the Freemasons, actually was originally the STO teaching of Atlantis. What you're looking at here is possibly, arguably, what was taught in Atlantis. And this is one of the reasons why the church, which is a faction that is anti-hermeticism and anti-natural law, did not want you to ever be exposed to these things. And this is going to begin to help you understand why religion has become so twisted. They never wanted you, the controllers never wanted you to realize an STO potential. They wanted to lock you in a service to self ideal, which is what religion is based on, because ultimately the religion serves the self. And so when you look at the psychology, and so what the controllers never wanted you to be able to do was to self-determine your life. They wanted you to always be subservient, asking permission, seeking approval, expecting reproof from your authorities. And by holding you in that psychology, in a religion, in an egregore, you frustrate the development of the individual. And so these things here unlock what are called in Kantekian terms, psychic powers. And these are not the chakras. We talked about this last week, but these are psychic powers that are locked in the mind. Now, what I want all of you guys to understand as we get deeper and deeper into Atlantis, you need to understand something very important, or you're going to get caught up in racism. You're going to get caught up in skin color. You're going to get caught up in the stuff that they have designed to catch you. And you won't be able to see the bigger principles on hand or available in Atlantis. So it's very, 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 very important that at the beginning, we get these things straight, okay? Now, natural earth beings that have never been infused with any type of alien DNA, I'm talking about way back when, I'm not talking about now because everybody's infected, but I'm saying way back when, let's say at Atlantis, there were factions of human beings that were vastly different in their color. The ones that had not yet been infiltrated by the off-planet alien DNA had tons of melanin in the skin. This is just practical physics, guys. This is just practical biology. There's no racism or religion at all in what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about basic science, okay? And so you had tons and tons of individuals, human beings that look just like us, all right, that were developing on this planet for a very long time. And those cultures and societies eventually developed into Atlantis. Atlantis came about, if we look at our little map here, and we're going to go back to that other slide in a minute here, but if we look at our map here, our principal concern is, and let's get a little larger shot here. Okay. Our principal concern is right down there where it says in pink 80,000 BC, and it says planet Kantek, Tiamat explodes from STS consumption. And then the next one over in 10,000 years later in 70,000 BC, Kantek DNA is put into Atlantis races, Aryan precursors of evil, the tall whites. And that leads into the Pyramid Age. So you have from about 70,000 BC all the way until the Younger Dryas, you have the development of the Pyramid Age. Let's remove this. Oh, sorry. Add a stage, remove. Here. You have the development of the Pyramid Age. And this, folks, this was a span, and this is even on Cliff High's timeline. This is a span of 50,000, 60,000 years of time of nothing but pure development of Atlantis going on. And what they are teaching from that is this hermeticism. And this hermeticism unlocks the psychic potential that is in this Kantekian alien nation that is infused into the human population. When they infused this white race of aliens from Kantek, the reason why they were white was because it was past Mars. The sun did not have a ton of radiation bombarding their planet Kantek like it does here on Earth. So, of course, in the natural process of development and the natural way beings are, they adapt to their environment. So you got a bunch of beings for hundreds of thousands of years, as we saw on the timeline there, that have not been exposed to any kind of non-melanin type of DNA. And so everybody's black. All the cultures that are growing up here on this planet before the Aryan Kanteks were infused in the society, everybody's black, because that's what's natural for the environment, because you have to have melanin to absorb the radiation from the sun. Okay, practical stuff here. Okay, practical stuff. When Kantek explodes from STS corruption, a number of the masters of that planet and race traveled in what were called Merkaba, light vehicles, which we talked about last week, to preserve the DNA and the basic being of this society, this very advanced society. And those, as well as a whole populace of people from Kantek, were forced to leave, were hauled out of there against their will. I mean, does that sound like what happens here? Were hauled out against their will and brought here thousands of years later to repopulate a planet that had been wiped out by the Younger Dryas. Okay? Now, I'm looking at the timeline at this stage. You can see where this happens. They're brought here 70,000 BC, and they're here all the way through the Pyramid Age. And it is my theory that the Pyramid Age came out of the tech that came from the Kanteks off planet. They were a highly advanced psychic community, psychic people that were brought here purposefully. Now, here's the key to understanding why there's a KM. This goes all the way back to Kantek. They were brought here to be the psychic controllers of the loosh-farm of this planet. This is initiating you into an entirely different history, so follow closely. Those alien beings were brought here and came here, some by choice, some not by choice, in 80,000 BC. How long ago? And they were brought here to rule over the races, the people, the humans that were already here, to improve the efficiency of the loosh that is coming out of the planet. They were brought here to be on-ground rulers of the populations of the earth. So the Kanteks, this highly advanced society, were brought here to augment, follow, the Semitic infusion that had already been put into the populace 50,000 years before. Think in terms of planning and escapism, meaning if you're a 4D planner and you want to capture all of the races that are currently developing, the people that are currently developing on the planet, and improve efficiency, right? You need managers, on-ground, recognizable, smart managers that will manage all of the farm animals that are on the planet. And they're going to create an efficiency, a greater efficiency to suck the loosh off of the people who are already here. So in 70,000 BC, a whole entourage of alien DNA, white DNA, was brought to Atlantis to infuse into the society, right? And unlock the psychic potential that was set up in the Semitic infusion and augmented by the Kantekians. Do you follow? By doing this, you have, follow the logic, you have a recognizable race of people, namely white people on Atlantis, that are differentiated between the other people that are already on the planet. I'm giving you the scope before I give you the story. So the whole important aspect of what was going on when the Kantekians were brought in wasn't to augment, to improve the lifestyle and experience of the farm animals. It was to contain it. It was to draw it in and intensify the loosh production available, the fruits, the anxiety, the troublesomeness of these people into a harvestable energy to make production more efficient. This was the motivation of bringing them here. Now, on Atlantis, there was a huge faction of both STS, service to self, and STO, potential beings. And these two societies were, quote unquote, duking it out, you could say, over vast spans of time, in the same way we have here, where you have a whole bunch of crime syndicates, a whole bunch of people that are trying to advantage the society within the bounds of the society, meaning using the society against itself, to turn against itself, to then pilfer and profit off the infighting that you are inculcating into the society, promulgating into the society. So we have that here on this planet. We have mobs, we have corrupt governments, we have corrupt financial people that are constantly advantaging the methodologies and ways that the society goes about. Okay, now just take that picture. Same thing's going on in Atlantis, except the two factions begin to differentiate themselves because of this skin color that has been introduced into the society. And as that skin color begins to move into the society through breeding and so on and so forth, what begins to happen is an enmeshment of this STS, STO, all within the planet. Like everyone's getting affected because everybody's breeding with each other, and this thing is leaking out. This is one of the reasons why the Luciferians here are very, very, very particular about genetics. That comes out of Atlantis. And the desire for that alien race to differentiate itself and keep itself clean from the peasants, the farm animals. You are not to intermingle with the farm animals. You're going to give them the DNA, and that's going to wake up their brains. That's what they're talking about in the Bible when they say, don't, you can't let them know about the tree of immortal life, because they'll become like we are. They now know about polarity. You can't tell them about eternal life. The tree of life. This is all metaphors. And this is pointing towards this advanced society and how it is infusing itself into the populace. This goes all the way to Atlantis. Okay. That's the underlying story of what is going on and the scenario that is unfolding as we in this situation as we're in now begin to unfold post Younger Dryas. And you need to understand, obviously, that the Younger Dryas was a complete wasting, a destroying of the entire planet. Just completely wiped it out. Study the work of Randall Carlson to get a better idea. Now, to start here and get going on our story, I just wanted to emphasize that these Hermetic principles come out of Atlantis. That's where this comes from. That's where Hermes Trismegistus, Thoth, Ra comes out of that. And then here, as we walk into this, to reiterate what I taught in my nature series and how we refine our consciousness. And I'm not going to go all through this, but the point being here is the application. The way we identify with ourselves is through explicit destruction. So tonight is the destruction of maybe some of the assumptions and conclusions you had drawn by not knowing the whole story. And my hope is that by knowing the, more of the story, you will experience a deeper insight, which will naturally cause destruction. It will naturally cause destruction because it's destroying the life, the world, the assumptions, the way that you always had it, that you've always assumed it. Probably the way you were raised, right? So that has to be destroyed. We identify with others through relational experience, which is important to find self-identity, because as I see myself in you and you see yourself in me, we coalesce, we unite together. And then how we identify with God is through implied realization. And this here is very important, is in the patterns. One of the key things that natural law, that alchemy teaches, is that it is through the patterns that truth is rendered. And so as we talk about Atlantis tonight, be careful to notice the patterns, the underlying stuff that shows you the parallels, keyword here, the morphogenesis passing on to us through Atlantis and Atlanteans and the people, the genetics that are our inheritance. We are the former populaces of Atlantis. Okay, that's why we're all mixed in our appearances, our colors, all of these characteristics of us. This all comes out of infusions and genetic modifications that were rampant all through Atlantis, all through our history. We are the result of enormous genetic modifications. Okay, it's a rigged system. We've been in a rigged system for a long time. Okay. So Hermeticism is one of the ways you escape being in a rigged system. It's called awareness. Now, here's the overview. Atlantis was not a single continuous golden age civilization, but a long-running advanced society that went through multiple genetic change phases, STS influences, and mind programming alongside cataclysms. They had it rough just like us. Its major developmental period and overhaul arrived with the integration of the Kantekians in 80,000 BC. This was 50,000 years after the Semitic infusion of 130,000 years. And this pattern I'm showing you right now will show you that how that what has been happening to us has been systematic. Keep that in mind. Even though these are tens of thousands of years apart, these events, they are systematically a part of a framework that is being installed around us and around you, tailor-made to keep you from developing. Tailor-made at your genetics. And when you begin to see how this went down, you recognize how you've been in a trap that's been tailor-made for you. And the only way you're going to escape that trap is if you see the parallels, the patterns to your own life experience, to that of history, to that of others. And this will render to you, oh, I'm in a trap, I must escape. So one of the things that you need to know is that you have been infused with a mindset of fanaticism. That's in you. It's ready to be unlocked. It's in you. You have a typical to do that, to lock into an idea, lock into an opinion, and just deny anything else. That is a psychic power that is inside of you that has been genetically infused into you by those who have genetically modified us. That's why all this genetic stuff you're hearing about coming out of Epstein, coming out of Atlantis, coming out of all the underlying Nazism and so forth, it's why they're involved in this. It's our history. It goes back into Atlantis in trying to control societies. augment certain aspects and characteristics of people while downgrading others, and doing that systematically in the DNA so that these people, the farm animals, have no idea that this has happened. They're born that way. Studying these patterns from Atlantis is going to help you see this. The final major destruction of all populations worldwide occurred in stages around 12,000 years ago, ending with the Younger Dryas cataclysm and associated cometary activity aftermath from the explosion of planet Kantek in 80,000 BC. Bear in mind, Atlantis was already a 10,000 year development. Let's try again. Bear in mind, Atlantis was already a 10,000 year developed civilization by the time Kantekians showed up and infused themselves into Atlantean society, sociology, and DNA. Think of how odd and upsetting that would have been to native societies, which was the tee-up for human social engineering. I'm going to expand on that. Hang on. Pro tip: navigating, directing, and controlling planetary events over vast spans of time is how 4D STS forces use eternal timescales to advantage 3D beings who are in time and cannot track distant pasts effectively or consistently. Because of cataclysmic wreckage and memory loss, the system is rigged to impede development, which is what I just said. It's rigged to keep you from becoming aware of who you are. Now, what I wrote here where it says, think of how odd and upsetting it would have been to have these native societies infiltrated by aliens. Now follow. The way Atlantis was set up was sort of a 3-ring kind of idea, where you have a center ring, like what Plato drew. You have a center ring, and then you have another ring, and then you have another ring. And what I think this is expressing are the layers of hierarchy that were playing out or played out on Atlantis. And so you have a ruling authority, essentially, with this alien species. Now imagine you're a naturally developing earth-bound species, and all of a sudden within your society, within your culture, is brought in this alien race that doesn't look exactly like you, different skin color, slightly different build, kind of a different attitude. And everything about this alien obviously rubs you the wrong way in the exact same way that when you see AI, it just has a rub, like when you see AI actors and an AI scene, you know it's AI, and it creates kind of a resistance. Like, okay, it's cool looking, you know, I can appreciate it, but there's no life there. There's no essentially authentic life there. It's all just computer ones and zeros being generated. And so there's a natural revulsion to your authenticity that occurs in the presence of AI. And this is a direct parallel to what was happening in Atlantis. Think about it. You have entire societies of people who are developing and rolling along for 10,000 years. And then you have this alien species brought in that looks totally different than you, who then is imposed upon you as your leaders. This is where that whole white supremacy thing comes out of. Follow. You have a white race of aliens that are taking over a colored planet. That happened in Atlantis. Imagine the anxiety, the hatred, the discourse between this native society and alien society interacting directly on the ground together. You can imagine what that would have been like. And so you have an enormous playing out of these tensions, again, to develop anxiety, to develop loosh. The moment they come here, they increase anxiety, they increase discord, they increase fighting, on ground fighting. In other words, it's working. The 4D STS schematic for 309,000 years is working like a charm. Working like a charm. You got all this population set up with the Semitic infusion, so they're already hard-headed, fanatical, and then you throw right into that mix this alien race with its own ideas, its own potential, its own look, and so on and so forth. And you can imagine what you then immediately begin to build. And folks, this is the beginning of your understanding why all of these ways that they prick on our society harken back to the fighting and anger going on in Atlantis. Folks, this is morphogenesis. This is morphogenesis. They're taking an event that happened tens of thousands of years ago to destroy the society from the inside out. And look at what you see happening today. Open borders, destroy the society, bring in alternate societies, force them together, and just let these things just destroy themselves. Folks, that pattern you are seeing right now is a direct pattern to what happened on Atlantis. It's a direct pattern. And in seeing these patterns, you can see the logic of why things are playing out the way they're playing out right now, the way things are going. You have to wisen up to the scenario that you have been pushed into by controllers that you can't see, who are operating on a level that you don't operate on all the time, just very rarely. Do you follow? So I'm showing you the systematic organization that's going down here. And here you see it right there, the Semitic infusion right there, 130,000 BC. The Semitic schism DNA programming introduced into North African populations and spreading worldwide. And this again is here where I want you to understand all of our differentiations in color, all of our differentiations in appearance, all of these differentiations did not come about naturally. Did not come about naturally. We have been genetically toyed with, messed with, changed, worked over time and time and time again. And these differentiations and exacerbating them have been what has been put upon us intentionally to create discord, to create disillusionment, to create anger and war between the populaces. Goes all the way back. I mean, look at the way that the Old Testament is written. The whole thing is us versus them. The whole thing is based on this, splitting societies into in-groups and out-groups and encouraging fighting through the truths that the document claims to have. Do you see? It's systematic, folks. This is not happenstance. It's not chance. Atlantis existed in successive stages of development, rise, corruption, partial resets, and eventual final destruction in the Younger Dryas. Post-Younger Dryas, the entire Earth population dwindled to just handfuls of survivors, as was intended. Atlantis was completely obliterated, with ocean seas that rose over 600 feet, with the instant boiling of the North American ice cap that melted in the span of a minute and poured out its 7-mile deep collection of ice out over the Earth in 700 plus foot tall tidal waves filled with trees, mud, stone, and debris, traveling hundreds of miles per hour. Just again, study the work of Randall Carlson. He'll show all this to you. The upper half of the Earth was basically ground into mulch. This happened just 12,000 years ago. It could be that Atlantis was, at the very least, a major galactic hub and possible originator of pyramid culture, which spread over the surface of the Earth during the Atlantean period of time. And Cliff High has shown you guys that many times. Are the pyramids on Earth from a single society, or are they independent developments taken from the ideas of the originators? Maybe some pyramid cultures were not STS, and by tapping into 4D STO, threatened the stability for STS to maintain control of the planet, and therefore threatening the entire STS planetary loosh harvesting system. And you guys are seeing that right now. You are seeing, just by showing us, here's another pattern, it's blatantly clear, just by showing people what's really been going on in the US government, what's really been going with USAID, what's really been going on with these governors and senators that are in Europe, in Italy, in the United States, all over these major first world countries. What do you see happening? They're being exposed. And what is the instantaneous response of the public? Get rid of them, kill them, throw them out. No tolerance at all. No tolerance at all. Okay, this is why they have to work, or have worked so hard, so that you wouldn't be aware. Because the moment you become aware, those psychic potentials that are in you, the STO and STS potentials that are in you, begin to light, begin to be ignited. In the same way, if I have an abused individual and I say trigger words to them, or I show triggers, flashes or scenes to their face, I can turn on a psychology that is latent in that person, meaning it's not there right now. But as soon as I trigger it, I get them to go up into an entirely different person and an uproar that I've triggered through a word, an event, or whatever. Okay, this is what you, this is exactly the way we're controlled, the MO of this group. And so Atlantis, at the very least, was likely a major galactic hub and possible originator of pyramid culture, which spread over the surface of the Earth during the Atlantean period of time. Are all the pyramids on Earth from a single society, or are they independent developments taken from the ideas of the originators? Maybe some pyramid cultures were not STS, and tapping into 4D STO threatened the ability of STS to maintain control of the planet, and therefore threatening the entire STS planetary loose harvesting system. On the other hand, maybe the world was going all STS and threatening to turn into Kantek and implode the Earth. Pyramid culture and their societies seems to be what was targeted to be destroyed at the younger dryas. And my point here is this. This is the fine line the 4D controllers walk. They need a psychically charged, aware, and very with it group that is aware of the deeper plot ongoing. At the same time, in that same populace, you need a whole grift of people that are locked in anxiety, and all their psychic centers are being ignited, not for awareness, but for depression, for anxiety, for loss, for not wanting to be alive. You're unlocking psychic panic centers that are all part and parcel of your emotional system that has been tainted through genetics. And these controllers tease and control you by triggering those psychic centers. And they don't want to turn the ones on that are STO. And the way you turn on the ones that are STO is by exposing those individuals to higher and higher awareness. And that awareness, the realization, you see, it triggers metamorphosis. It's like the drug addict that finally sees, that's been one of the major reasons why I've been chasing numbness. I've been chasing whatever it is in my life that I want to avoid. And when they make that connection, you immediately cut the power of that addiction. Immediately. And this is what's available inside of you. And so the dark 4DD, the STS 4D people, do not want those psychic centers of awareness to be unleashed in you, because then you can't be controlled. You can't be stopped. You can't be told no. You will no longer be a bot. You no longer obey. You no longer follow the orders. You no longer do as you're told. In other words, you're not going to be controlled anymore because a psychic center has been awakened in you. And this is the tough thing to understand, but the 4D controllers put those psychic awareness, STO or STS, powers into all these individuals because, again, the universe, nature, is delivered in balance. So just as much evil psychic centers put in there is the equal amount of positive. This is why I've said repeatedly, you have Bach and Hitler in you. You have those potentials in you. You have these psychic centers in you. They're latent. It's simply a matter of turning them on. And it is your environment, get it? It's your environment that turns them on. So if I destroy your environment, harm your environment, compromise your environment, taint your perspective, you can see how those psychic centers of STO will never awaken. The person will be completely consumed with STS. They'll think they're a sinner. They'll think they're fallen. They'll think they have to have authority. They'll think they can't be their own authority. They'll think they need accountability partners to remain, quote unquote, true, because their awareness, their environment has been so tainted by the controllers. So they themselves initiate their very own demise. This is the person that's both the warden and the prisoner. That's that concept. That person has been locked into that prison through their own mind. Initiated, put there by the controllers, by controlling your environment. This is the kind of stuff they never want you connecting. And when you begin to study Atlantis, and you begin to study why all these elite people are trying to gain Atlantis tech and Atlantis history and Atlantis knowledge, it's because this world is a reflection of that. This world is a continuation of that. And so the principles, the guiding forces that brought about Atlantis, they're trying again to taint here on this planet, have been. And you see their operation at work, folks. You see it at work. You see it completely in place. And studying Atlantis renders this to you. Next slide. Atlantis was a large island continent or extensive archipelago, said by the Cassiopeans to be located in the Atlantic Ocean region. We're going to look at that here in a second. It was big enough to support advanced infrastructure, multiple population centers, and off-planet operations. This is going to give you an idea of its scope. Remember, guys, this is a 50,000-year society. We're only 10,000 years, and we've been under pretty serious oppression. Okay. Without a rival worldwide that we know of, Atlantis was the epicenter of the world, acting as a societal authority of all things on Earth. Atlantis handled technological control, communications, and extraterrestrial interplay for all Earth activities. And folks, what is the CIA? What is the CIA? Look, the CIA is doing exactly what Atlantis was doing. Handle all technological control. Handle all and oversee all communications. Handle all and oversee and keep private all extraterrestrial interplay for all of the Earth's activities. And who started the CIA? The Nazis. Who started the Nazis? The white supremacists. Where do the white supremacists come from? Kantek. Kantek. Do you see how big a play that you're in? Atlantis had a highly organized physical layout with crystal power centers powering all layers, supporting huge conglomerates of diverse people living in a high-tech metropolis. Atlantis maintained active connections with Mars and the Moon power stations, colonies, and bases, with many still standing and in use today on both. This is all out of the transcripts. After its destruction, remnants of the Atlantis landmass sank into the Atlantic with huge tectonic crust shifts from the wakes of water and earthquake that reshaped the surface. And again, this is all part of the cataclysm that was going down. It disrupted the entire environment. It is possible the Earth relocated its orbital center of gravity with the release of all the waters and possible atmosphere onto the planet within minutes of the meteor strike. In other words, you have a balancing issue going on. Tidal waves, as mapped by Randall Carlson, literally reshaped the face of the planet, and Atlantis sank deep underwater or was ground to nothing like a tree through a wood chipper. And imagine, we're going to read the note here in a minute, and imagine the picture that Randall Carlson has offered in regards to the melting of that 7-mile ice plate that extended all the way into the middle of North America. Canada was under 7 miles of ice. The top part of the United States was under 3 miles of ice, okay? There was an enormous ice cap, okay, that was going on. Atlantis was further south off of Africa, okay, outside of that. And so when all of that water melted within a couple of minutes of being struck by a meteor, you see, what you have then is you have a mass of water, just like you see when a big iceberg calves and it falls into the water and this huge wake of water comes out and comes out from that. Well, okay, imagine now the entire top cap of the world is hit by a meteor. And all of that water comes flooding down. Imagine, he describes it as 600, 700, maybe 1,000-foot wakes. And those wakes would gather whatever it is they were gathering as they moved down the planet. So it's full of trees, rocks, house-sized boulders, every kind of debris you can imagine. And it's moving at hundreds of miles an hour due south. Ain't nothing going to stop it. Imagine what something like that, a mud wave, would do as it passed over a society of skyscrapers and so on and so forth. What would be left? Well, what looks like a mud flood now, would you imagine? And look at how many remnants we have of the mud floods, many mud floods. And look what they do. They bury societies. Gives you also an idea of how strong the pyramids were to be able to withstand something like that. Pro tip, or excuse me, at the bottom where it says note, a single untouchable high-tech civilization and leadership amidst the endless fields of Earth used as human farms would have been the perfect situation for an advanced 4D loosh-farming and genetic manipulation situation. An almost unlimited supply of lower awareness humans with no recognized sovereignty presents a mountain of loosh for easy capture. And this is exactly what they had been trying to do here. They lost control in Atlantis. The STO got too strong. The STS got too strong, meaning the planet's either going to implode, which is what I just read. The planet is either going to implode from evil, meaning us, just like Kantek did. Okay, that same thing happened to us. Or the STO faction kicks off, like Hermes Trismegistus, Thoth, Ra, these kind of individuals begin to gain more and more power, and the STO will overcome the STS. You guys know this through sixth density knowledge. You guys know this. So the 4D controllers are like, holy shit, Frank, we got a problem. Because if we let it keep going STS, we ain't going to have Earth anymore. We've lost a major loose production farm. And if we let it go further with this STO thing, it's going to no longer be STS, and it's going to destroy the planetary systems. And so what did they do? Wipe it out. All pyramid cultures, all cultures across the entire planet, wipe it out. Repeated cataclysms, repeated earthquakes, repeated volcanoes, releasing all kinds of crap in the atmosphere, changing the weather. In other words, total annihilation. Why would a 4D group who's harvesting all kinds of loosh off of this planet, extremely efficient, with a ruling society at the top, why would they ever let that go? Why would they ever compromise that? Because it's untenable. There's this thing called free will, which they can't get around. We all have free will. Every single one of us has free will, and they can't get around it. They have to finagle and manipulate with things like the revelation of the method and so forth to get you to go along with it and use your free will to their advantage. That's called an egregore. And we've talked about that endlessly. And this is the situation here. This is the situation here. And so we have an entire planet that is captured. An entire planet that is captured with these egregores. And it's an untenable situation. And so the 4D controllers have to say, well, we either have to let it implode in STS like Kantek and we lose the whole thing, or we wipe out the entire scenario, we lose all of our loosh harvesting for quite some time, and then we rebuild the society. We let this society come back. And it talks about this here later where it says that it was allowed, that Atlantis was allowed to develop. The population of Atlantis contained 3 races. 2 groups of people were native to Earth. The Native American type of individual, this is the ancient Lemurians, well integrated into nature. This is where the Tao comes from. And the Paranthas people, who were very much like the Papua New Guinea or Aboriginal people. The third, now those 2 are natural Earth. The third group, and most psychically powerful, was an off-planet alien group called the Kantekians, who were hauled to Earth, mostly by force. Sound familiar what they're going to do here? Put everyone in houses, right? When the COVID thing happened, but because we were aware, we stopped it, right? This is how we kept that from happening to us. Who were hauled to Earth, mostly by force, about 10,000 years after Atlantis had been founded by native Earth people. Okay, the Kantekians were brought in, folks. Okay, we were already beginning to develop the society. The natural Earth humans were already beginning to develop society, and they couldn't have it. You gotta have a controlling agency to control the development of the society, period. It's a 3D society. This group has free will, and they can't just impose. They have to bring about the activities and actions on the planet through the very choices of the people on the planet. This is why it's so important that here at Nature Creature, we encourage everyone to change your mind, release from the egregores, because that's what's going to save the society. You have to change your awareness. You have to change your awareness to change the society. No one's coming to save you, and no one can save you. You have to save yourself. It is unclear how the Kanteks were introduced to the native people on Earth and how that sociology played out with the Semitic infused humans. I mean, can you imagine? These 3 groups intermingled to varying degrees over time, but tensions and distinct identities persisted. That means I ain't getting along with them. Ain't getting along with them. And this is that Semitic, folks, I am telling you, it is so freaking clear. That is that Semitic infusion here. This is the tee up, folks. Right there, 130,000 BC. The natives, meaning you and me, the ones that are not from Kantek, right? Right? We're all infused. We're all infused with that latent psychic center that brings about fanaticism. We're all teed up. We've had 50,000 years prep, and then the Kanteks come in. Do you really think the 4D controllers didn't know that that's what was coming with Kantek? Do you really think they didn't know that at 130,000 BC, when they saw what was coming in the future, because time doesn't mean anything to these creatures, and they saw and they said, you know what, if we tee up these groups that we've got here on the planet so that when we bring in the Kanteks in 50,000 years, we're going to create an incredible amount of loosh, anxiety, hatred, dissension between all the groups that we got on this planet. Stick them all together. It's like when you were a kid, you got the red ant pile and you would take a root filled with the red ants and you'd shove them into the black ant pile, or vice versa. I did that all the time on the playground as a kid when I was in elementary school, because they had these red ant piles, and I loved getting a little black ant and putting him on the stick and sticking it down the red ant and watching them battle it out. Do you see? Take that picture of controlling these ant piles, right? As a little kid, they're just doing that right now with the planet. We're the ants. And they're just forcing and imposing all of these situations that build dissension, anger, anxiety, resentment, hatred. It is all a part of a plan. It is not natural. It is not all of it. All of it has been like a puppet, like a puppeteer. We've been like puppets for the puppeteers. And they're just advantaging our in-awareness. That's why awareness is so important. Okay, continuing. These three groups intermingled to varying degrees over time, but tensions and distinct identities persisted. It is obvious from the history as laid out by the Cassiopeans that the Kantekians survived Younger Dryas alongside portions of the two other types, but it took thousands of years of true hardship to recover. This is the playing out post-Younger Dryas. This opportunity reshaped the societal landscape, as we saw in our study of the Sumerians, Canaanites, and Phoenicians. The Younger Dryas was the clearing of the fields, so to speak, to set up the final genetic hybridization of humans by replanting the new human species all over the planet. And we know they did this. This would have been about 9,000 BC, give take 1,000 years. And that's when all the different races were put back on Earth. You can even see it in the story of Cain, where he went out into Nod, and there were entire populations of people that were already there. Folks, they're telling you what's going on. They're hiding it behind a false narrative, but they're having to tell you the truth underneath, which is always true with the controllers. They have to give you a tiny bit of truth. And this is who we came into. All these different races that had already been implanted post Younger Dryas, when the entire Earth was wiped out. Younger Dryas was the clearing of the fields. And it set up the hybridization. This would have been about 9,000 BC. Pyramids and crystal cities did not show up until about 10,000 years after the Kantekian infusion, about 50,000 BC. It's likely it was Kantekian technology that originated and built the pyramids, though there are debates otherwise. The pyramids seem to have been built with mind power and mastery of elements, not physical exertion, hammers, and chisels. Think Yoda on Dagobah floating Luke's X-wing, and in my opinion, that's how they made the pyramids. That's how they shaped the pyramids. We just are not aware of the power we have. It's simply a matter of the proper elements and the proper mindset to develop the resonation necessary to basically eliminate gravity, so that you can float, you can lift objects that weigh as much as a 747, as much as a 20,000-pound boulder. It means nothing. It's like the guy that built Coral Castle in Florida. Just look that dude up. He built this place called Coral Castle in Florida, and he died, and he never told anybody how he did it. I mean, it's just incredible. Either that, or he died and they hid all of his notes and information and, shut him up so that, the CIA would never allow him to be, to that technology to be known. But just look it up. Just look it up, Coral Castle. And it will show you how simply being aware will free you. And the reason why I mentioned this right up here where it says social landscape was we saw our study of the Sumerians, Canaanites, and Phoenicians. This is where these things began to land, in the areas that we have studied in our studies of the Khazarian Mafia. And we're going to look at that here in a second. I'm going to show you the map. We're going to keep going. Kantekians, also referred to as the northern peoples, became the dominant race on Atlantis. These were tall, fair-skinned, Nordic-type, blonde or red hair people that would have distinctly stood out among natural Earth humans. And of course, there's some of them are intermingling. They're having sex. They're crossbreeding. There's no doubt about it. That's been going. They're on the planet for 50,000 years. Okay, the Kantekians occupied the northern section of Atlantis proper, and they brought with them extremely advanced psychic abilities and technological prowess. Their genetic traits later formed the Nordic-covenant bloodlines, including the secret psychic power centers that awaken both STS and STO potential beings, that's us, as we have been discussing for weeks now. Excuse me, it is these Kantekian psychic power centers that the elites have attempted to capture and preserve to an exclusive bloodline. This begins to help you understand why they are fanatical. The Luciferians are fanatical about finding very, very, very specific bloodlines. They are interested in the psychic centers that coincide with the bloodline. Every one of these bloodlines, because your blood is your life, initiates, carries specific types of psychic centers. And they are seeking out the DNA that points to the most potential being, not necessarily STS or STO, but potential. Those are the ones that can awaken the society because they can they can key in to that psychic infusion, that psychic ability that came out of the Kanteks, that encouraged development of the mind here in us human beings as we were already here, already genetically altered. And the STS forces risked bringing in a higher psychic power to increase their ground game, but at the same time, they're risking the population waking up. Do you follow the line they're following? Because there's free will. They can't get around free will. They can't get around it. And they can't get around balance. They can't get around mentalism. The Hermetic principles, they cannot escape these things. And so because of that, you have to have a very, very complex and very effective game plan to walk that line. And as you guys see, since the Younger Dryas was over around 9,000, it happened in 11,000, take about 1,000 or 2,000 years to settle the earth out. Right around 9,000, 8,000, 10,000 BC, when our history books light up, you can see that is right at the point when they began to make their next move. How are we going to create a society that facilitates enormous amounts of loosh, but doesn't wake up themselves? We only perturbate the STS psychic centers in the population. We don't allow the STO centers that are just as well there to be lit. This precisely is what we do at Nature Creature. We light up the STO psychic center that is inside every single one of us. It doesn't matter your skin color. This is all inside us now. We've been around too long, and there's been interbreeding between all these races for these genetics to not leak into the society. That's why the Luciferians are just randomly pulling all these blood samples to try and find, because even they can't track finally who has that psychic center in them. It's known through the blood. You have to get the blood from the individual for them to be able to find this stuff. Do you see? Back to stage. It is these Kantekian psychic power centers that the elites have attempted to capture and preserve to an exclusive bloodline. This harkens back to the reason Columbus came to America, which we talked about in one of my distant talks, not to discover it, right? They sent Columbus not to discover America, but to go and rape and pillage those who were in America, namely the Native Americans who carry the Lemurian psychic centers. And the psychopaths, the vampires that run the world, want to exploit those centers in those children, as I laid out in one of my past talks. I can't remember which one. I laid all that out. And the person who asked earlier, how does this coincide? How's the Cassiopeian, the law of one, coincide with what I've been teaching? Directly. Don't even have to try. Don't even have to try to align these things. They are all pointing to the same history, the same underlying truth. And so they went to Native America. Columbus did, who was a mercenary for the English throne. That's that Kantekian, but kidnap Native American children for their psychic potentials. The obsession they have with white bloodlines draws from attempting to preserve, follow now, the Kantekian bloodline passed down from Kantek. That's why it's white. They don't have melanin. This is why Hitler, Nazism, and the like constellate white supremacy ideals. Those come out of Kantek, folks. Those are not natural to the earth. Those are egregores. Those are lies that have been brought here from off planet. It comes from the white-skinned beings from Kantek who considered themselves superior to human beings. Racism based on human history is the cover story. The cover story for Kantek DNA infusion. In other words, it's not a natural development. It's a cover story. You were brought into these racist ideals and racist notions from aliens, because human beings are loving and compassionate at their core. They have to be programmed to be a racist. They have to be programmed to hate. Do you follow? When you're programmed in those ways, that's how those psychic centers are unlocked. When the CIA and MK Ultra abuse the little children, they're unlocking the psychic centers that are available in those little children, because they're just as available in the children as they are in the adults. It's in your blood. It's in your mind. It's available. And it can be exploited. This is why they abuse the children to shut off the STO psychic centers, turn on the STS psychic centers, and you create monsters, killers, psychopaths. That's all STS. This is the logic, folks. They are following logic. This isn't random happenstance. This is ancient, probably multi-million-year-old 4D technology that is being used on us. Like I said, it's a tough go on this planet. This situation is rigged, and it's rigged hard. Racism based on human history is the cover story for Kantekian DNA. Skin color was an identifier between pure humans and Kantek influenced people on Atlantis. And to this day, the historical stigma and hierarchical stigma persists over the alien perspective. Now you see why George Soros uses racism to destroy societies. That's his MO. He's comes straight out of the Kantekian technology. Atlantis reached a very high level of technological and psychic development using crystal-based power systems. These systems, this is all tied into that psyche thing. These systems included pyramids and crystal arrays used to harness and distribute ionic energy at scale. That includes within you, my friend. This technology, combined with knowledge and practical application of variable physicality, the ability to manipulate matter and density to a significant degree, made the Kantekians an untouchable force. An untouchable force on the planet, far distancing themselves from the other two native Earth populations, which you talk about. This really was the beginning of an imposition of rulership right amidst the Atlanteans at the ground level, in the same way the smelting of iron changed the Levant from partnership tribes to dominator empires. And this is the link I want you to see. Remember in our KM study, remember how I showed you how the Levant, here we see it, the Levant was a playing out of the natural development of societies, and then this Khazarian mafia mindset that is being infused and regicided into the developing societies, right at ground level, right at real time, on planet here and now. The same, like I said earlier, the same exact thing was done in Atlantis. There is a technology called forcing all these psychic minds, these psychic ideas together. And by pulling them together, you generate chaos. You generate dissension of the development of the society simply by turning them against one another. In other words, this is mind tech. This is exactly the practice of the CIA. This is exactly the practice of MK Ultra. Direct attack on the human mind, program it within that attack, and then you have now a human being that's no longer human. Their compassionate psychic centers have been destroyed or almost destroyed by the abuse, by the egregores, by the pain of life that's been exacerbated and encouraged by the controllers. I'm trying to help you see you are in a systematic takedown of your natural. You are in a systematic takedown, and it starts at your DNA. You have a natural, compassionate, loving DNA that was infused in you the moment we jumped into these bodies 309,000 years ago. And since that moment, there has been a specific plan, a specific path, a specific way to keep you from ever waking up to that, from ever waking up to your true self, your true compassion, your true love, the energies that are inside you that make you a human being, that differentiate you from a wolf, a lion, a cat. Those deep psychic centers that are in you that awaken you. And when they awaken, you become humane. You can see the systematic nature now of our reality as well as Atlantis. You can see the morphogenesis. You can see how it carries down through the genes, just like Dr. Sheldrake has explained to us. And the very things that are separating that society and harming that society in Atlantis are the very things that are harming this society here. They're using morphogenesis. They're using the truth of the universe to continue to frustrate our development. And when you see these patterns, my friend, this is how you escape. This was a way to control the Earth populace by a visibly distinct, psychically STS-charged Nordic-type human at the top of the food chain, an alien race acting as a self-appointed authority. Does this sound familiar? Through technological advancement in the scope of farm control to maintain homogeneous integration of loosh sourcing. Advanced genetic engineering and hybridization, including experiments that later birthed in mythology as hybrid creatures. And in case you didn't know that, one of the ways they have gotten the ideas of those hybrid creatures in Greek mythology comes out of directly out of the genetic alterations they're performing on us and the animals. All those crazy ideas, those crazy mythological elements in animals that are in the Greek mythologies, guess what, friend? There's a very real chance that those hybridizations in the mythologies are the very hybridizations that went on in our genetic manipulation as a part of keeping all of this in the STS realm. Now, of course, there's an STO definition of the Greek pantheon of gods, no doubt about it, but there's also an STS. It has both. Do you see? And so by frustrating, intermixing these types of real truths as well as mythologies, do you see how you confuse the society? Can you see how now you're going to have a society that's confusing real life events with mythological events? And when these two things get mixed up and people start concretizing things, you frustrate the society, you frustrate the psychology. And folks, this is the stuff that we have been talking about on my channel for years now. For years now. That's what's been so miraculous about uncovering this unknown technology from Atlantis, is that it is basically augmenting all of our studies for the last 2 to 3 years, including the KM. And if you continue to follow these patterns, folks, you're not going to have any mystery left over as far as our history. It'll be like, this is exactly what happened. This is exactly how we got to the incredibly debaucherous situation that we find ourselves now. It's been a systematic stepping, man. It hasn't been happenstance chance. It has been a coordinated effort over tens of thousands of years to directly and very carefully and judiciously guide this little group of people that we got on this planet that generates some of the best loosh that's available in the universe. This gives you a big picture, not only to your value, but to what they've been doing to you. It is likely all populations bordering Atlantis served ultimately as slaves to it in the same way old European dominions served the local king, like it or not. And again, here it is. That's an exact same pattern. What we saw as Europe was developing, we also see in what the legend says and how Atlantis developed underneath some kind of authority that doesn't let you think for yourself, that doesn't allow consciousness expansion. The advanced technological world, centralized and powering the Atlantean metropolis, was like the chariot or tank or A-bomb on the battlefield of Earth in 35,000 BC. Alexander the Great, Patton, and Oppenheimer agree. It's not hard to bring the enemy to submission with superior technology. Winners ruled the society Atlantis just as they do today. And again, more patterns, more patterns. It's simply technological. And that's why they have the power. Just like in the past, when they had the when they invented the smelting of iron, when the Hittites invented the smelting of iron, guess what happened? Goodbye, tribal societies. Goodbye. You have no chance against a society that has the technology that Rome has, that the Hittites have. And you're done. You're done. You got the wrong technology. Follow. Now, why do you think the elites have been chasing technology? This is how you remain in control of the society. They're not chasing technology for the betterment. They're chasing the technology for the control. Understand that, friend. That's the difference between an STS planet and an STO planet. An STO planet would be discovering all of this power of the ionosphere and integrating that into the society to better and better and better the society, like they were probably doing in Lemuria, like they were probably doing in Tartaria. Using the technology to better it. We are ruled by rulers that use the technology not to bring about awareness and heal us, but to capture us, destroy us, harm us. The pattern is constant. It's constant. And so in the same way that Oppenheimer knew when he invented the A-bomb, hey, if you bomb this, you bomb a society with this thing, they ain't got no chance. Think of the Semitic infusion. Think of the Kantekian infusion. Hey, listen, if we put this alien race that's so much smarter than the ones that are already on the planet, they're psychically aligned, they were able to implode their own planet, they have so much power, we can just throw that technology right into the middle of this earthen milieu that we've been working on for the last 130,000 years, and we can seize control of the whole damn thing. Seize control with technology. Seize control. And you see that same theme, folks, in our modern day today. It is the society that has the technology that controls the world. Folks, that has been going on since before Atlantis. That's a planetary truth. And this is why you see what you see. This is why it's unfolded the way that it's unfolded. Now, this is interesting. This is interesting. STO and STS factions that were on Kantek. Or that were in Atlantis, excuse me. Atlantis was originally a mixed bag of STO, STS that, like planet Kantek, became increasingly STS dominated over time. Remember, we are in an STS faction of planets and other star systems that have formed a loosh ecosystem for the STS Orion Consortium. And I started that when I started talking about the Cassiopeians, since long before 3D life was here. We are late in the game of a long captured matrix. Now, on the planet, you guys will find this interesting. There are two primary opposing STO-STS factions from Atlantis referenced by the Cassiopeians. Now, some of you guys have heard of this, I think. The Sons of Belial. This was the STS-aligned Atlantean, materialistic, power-oriented, STS-aligned humans often associated with the later Kantekian-infused groups like the Masons in some interpretations. These are vampire types who feed off the energy of others. Consuming just builds more hunger. It never self-propitiates like an STO. An STS eats to live and feel alive. Okay? So in order for the STS individual to feel alive, to feel motivated, to have energy, they align to sucking that life energy, others' life energy, to themselves. This is the true STS. This is the true deceiver. They know they are harming another while they participate in the activity, and they like that. And they don't want that other to know that they are participating in the activity because it makes them feel even better with the person fully deceived. This is pure STS. Okay? And so the STS individual lives like a vampire. And so they feed, but you're just hungry later. The STO is not like that. The STO is not hungry like that later. And the other side that was in Atlantis was the sons of the law of one, spiritual awakening oriented to STO laning. The benefit of being STO is the fulfillment and completion it brings to life. Compassion births love, not hunger. Filling another with love makes more love. And STO gives to live and feel alive. You see? One is eating to live, right there, the STS. The STO gives to live. And someone asked, what was the payoff of being an STO? That's the payoff, is that you quench the spiritual hunger, the spiritual connectivity that your soul longs for, the real authentic experience that your soul longs for. The STS individual longs to take that from someone else. They don't want it themselves, for themselves. They want it from someone else. Their power comes from taking. Their power comes from eating. Do you see? And so the next day, the next epoch, they're just hungry again. Whereas the STO, as you're loving others, caring for others, helping for others, and so on and so forth, you're not hungry with emptiness like the STS is hungry with emptiness. The STO doesn't suffer from that emptiness. They don't suffer from that lack because they're oriented to fulfillment. They're oriented to the connection and unity of others. So you're not engendering hunger. You're engendering fulfillment. The vampire is engendering hunger. It's giving hunger power by going and eating that life force off of others, because you eventually eat their life force. You have to go find another one to eat off of. You see, it's a totally different orientation to life. The internal conflict between these factions was so strong it contributed to the civilization's instability in the same way Rome and Babylon destroyed themselves from their own self-derived internal conflicts and debauchery. In much the same line of self-destruction now, Atlanteans engaged in genetic experimentation, hierarchical control structures, and the use of high technology for destructive over conservative means. Now here, what I wanted to do was to pick up on the idea of the law of one, which comes out of the whole law of Ra kind of a thing. That is the mirror image, or I should say the coinciding point that goes along with the work of Laura and the Cassiopeans. Okay. The law of one was the STO portion of Atlantis. The sons of Belial was the STS, and the law of one was the STO. Okay, and these are the factions that were playing out. Now, to understand the motivation, sorry, I got a cough. Hang on a minute. Let me get this slide so you can look at it, and you got to listen to me. Hang on. Okay, sorry. Here. The law of one is a modern channeled philosophy from the 1980s derived from sessions with an entity named Ra, incorporating extraterrestrial elements, densities of existence, wanderers, and concepts like harvest or ascension that blend Eastern Dharmic, Eastern India, ideas with Western esotericism. The law of one prioritized polarity choices and infinite intelligence without a framework. I would suggest that Ra, Hermes, Thoth, Parzival, the Greek gods, and Knights of the Round Table are the same intelligence, quote unquote, entity, quote unquote, collective, quote unquote, that instructs in metaphor the way of STO. What is the way that I have been teaching you guys from the beginning, from the very beginning, guys, from the beginning? I have been instructing you exactly like this here, the metaphor of the way of the STO. That's why we studied Parzival. That's why we studied Zen, which is full of Eastern metaphors, Eastern concepts called koans. That's why we studied in tarot the metaphors that are the pictures and the individuals and the scenarios that are pictured on the tarot. These are all metaphors, you see. This is STO. The STO teaches a truth that can't be telt. It's felt. So you realize it through the metaphor. You realize fulfillment through the experience of this STO, compassion and love, experiencing that. This is taught through metaphor. And you can see how with the STS, it's more concerned with materialism, not the metaphor. I'm not saying completely. I'm saying it obsesses you. The STS wants to obsess you with the material. The STO wants to, quote unquote, obsess you with the metaphor, with the truth that you see, but it's the truth past what you see. So the truth that you see is the truth because of the truth behind it, the part that you can't see. And this is the arrangement that brings about fulfillment in the person when they have that epiphany, when they have that realization of, aha, that's the connection. There's the love. There's the oneness. There's the unity. And the STO person will feel fulfilled, will feel full in their spiritual entelechy. You see, and that's the opposite of the STO, which is feeding off the joy of others, feeding off the hate of others, feeding off of others. You see, it's an entirely different mindset, mindscape, ideal. And this law of one begins to render this to you. Those that pursue a service to others approach to life can utilize the teachings of STO archetypes, those are the metaphors, to experience the STO transition through essential experiences on Earth in the STO strata. The layers. What layers, Chuck? These layers. These layers. This is STO teaching. Mentalism, vibration, polarity, correspondence, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. Energy, frequency, and vibration. That's what Tesla told you if you want to understand the universe. And what are these things? Also a reflection of that same thing. Same thing. Okay? These are what enrich your experiences so that as an STO, when you go to bed at night, you're not left feeling empty. When you wake up in the morning, you don't feel empty. You feel completely fulfilled because you are engaging life from an STO-oriented perspective. There's no hunger there, friend. There's no hunger there. There's meaning, there's completion, there's oneness, there's unity. Okay? And this is your natural. You're filled with these things. And so it comes out of you, it expresses, and then it returns back to you. This is the fulfillment of your own very love being returned back to you by those whom you love. This is why the hater that fills others with hate, they get hate returned back to them. That's pure emptiness. That's why your life is filled with lack when you're oriented to STS, when you're oriented to the negative. You are attracting hunger. You're attracting neediness. You're attracting emptiness because you are pursuing a self-goal. The STO person doesn't suffer with that. They're not pursuing a self-goal. Like I've told you guys before, there is no plan. There is simply being fully present in the now, ready, available, aware of anything, right? In other words, open, accepting, loving, right? The STS is imposing, putting, taking, usurping. Do you see? And your human sense, your human nature is fulfilled by that STO principle, not the STS. That just fills your gut. That just fills ideas in your mind. It doesn't constitute your life. Love is what constitutes your life, not feeding. Expressing is what constitutes your life, is what brings about the fulfillment of your life. Do you see? And I'm talking in the spiritual sense. I'm talking in the spiritual sense here. Okay. This is great concept, Law of One. Law of One Atlantean philosophy emphasizes the unity of all existence, viewing the universe as an interconnected whole where everything stems from a singular divine source. Law of One posits that the spiritual enlightenment arises from experiencing this oneness in the now. And anybody, folks, anybody who is oriented to STO knows exactly that line right there. You know exactly what that's like. Stems from a singular divine source. Law of One posits that spiritual enlightenment arises from the experiencing of this oneness in the now. And folks, the greatest example of that is right there. Right there. You're experiencing the STO when you are a part of saving a life, a part of that person's saving their life. When you are a part of that scenario, it brings fulfillment to you. It brings the feeling of love to you. which is why I share that number and keep that number up, because that is our number as a collective. These are the lives that we have participated in, that we have helped to save, that we have been a catalyst to their saving of their own life, because that brings fulfillment to the STO. Do you see? The STS would get no fulfillment from that. Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Sorry, I'm going to get a nice swig of water here. Hang on. Okay. Law of One Atlantean philosophy emphasizes the unity of all existence, viewing the universe as an interconnected whole where everything stems from a singular divine source. The Law of One posits that spiritual enlightenment arises from experiencing this oneness in the now. The Law of One asserts that all things are one and all beings are expressions of the infinite creator. We've talked about that, the costumes of God. It promotes self-improvement and spiritual evolution as core pursuits, encouraging practitioners to refine their consciousness and align with higher truths for personal transformation and service to humanity. Does that not sound like the kind of thing we do all the time here on Nature Creature? Does that not sound like it? It's exactly what we do. This is exactly what we do. We promote self-improvement. Do we not? Of course we do. We promote spiritual evolution as core pursuits. Do we not? Of course we do that here on Nature Creature. We encourage practitioners, that's you, that's me, to refine their consciousness. What do we do every week here? And align with higher truths for personal transformation and service to humanity. It sounds to me, folks, like we are directly in line on this channel, at least, with the Law of One, with the STOs from Atlantis. How awesome is that? Some of the highest teachings available to us as human beings. And here we are on Nature Creature. Without even trying, we have completely aligned to it just in our studies together. How beautiful is this? Concepts such as vibration, rhythm, and polarity evoke Hermetic ideals, and these manifest as energetic densities through polarities like STO and STS, life through death, sound and silence, fostering the mystical approach to realizing human meaning, motivations, and metamorphosis, which is the crystallization of the 3D into the 4D. And here we are with this cursory look at the Law of One, which was the teaching from Atlantis through STO, Hermeticism, right? We are directly in line with what they suggest. Not in the sense of path, but in the sense of suggestion. Open to new interpretations, right? That's all it says right there. Evolution of core pursuits, encouraging practitioners to refine their consciousness, and then personal transformation and service to humanity. Law of One philosophy incorporates esoteric practices like symbolism, alchemy, and channeling to access hidden knowledge, aiming to minimize distortions in perceiving reality. And that is so freaking key. Aiming to minimize distortions in perceiving reality. And folks, you can see that all over the quote-unquote battlefield that is the Earth. Think of how many times the controllers have tried to take you in the last 5 years. Think of how many times. Think of how many times the controllers in government have tried to rape your sovereignty, force you to get a shot, force you to believe a certain way, namely BLM or DEI, forcing and imposing these things upon you, forcing you to believe that there's no such thing as gender. They are imposing and forcing these things upon you intentionally. Intentionally. You see? And we have to minimize those distortions by expanding our awareness so that when the doctor says, hey, Chuck, for your cancer, the only thing that we can do and the only viable option is for you to get chemotherapy. That's it. Those are your options. And when I say, no, I don't want to do chemotherapy, the doctor says, okay, get out of my office. I don't want to see you ever again. Do you see? Do you see? I have to minimize the distortions of my perceived reality by knowing a deeper truth than that freaking doctor, which is why I'm here today. Because if I had followed that doctor's advice, I'd be dead now and I wouldn't be talking to you anymore. You would have never heard of me. But because we are living to aim and minimize distortions in perceptive reality, we are looking past the laws, past the authorities, past the solutions that they offer, because you know that we are in a STS controlled situation. And so all the systems of knowledge, the medicine, the history, the government, the money are all lies. The food, it's all lies. So right here, the lesson, aiming to minimize distortions, you're going to be able to see those distortions by awakening, by expanding your awareness. And this is how you avoid the very real death scenarios that are put in front of you. Because the controllers would rather you dead than thinking for yourself. They'd rather you dead. They would rather you not even existing if you do not obey their plan. What do you think they've been doing with all the work that you've been seeing happening in the world right now as of late? A systematic movement to try and force you to take things that will kill you, to agree to things that undermine the very society that you live in. You have to be aware to see past this stuff. That's all Atlantean STO, positive thinking, reincarnation, and the marriage of science and mysticism. Echo law of one teaching and free will, love, light, and the evolutionary journey of the soul through cycles of experience. Themes of cosmic unity and consciousness exploration are encouraged by supporting open-mindedness and compassion as pathways to enlightenment. Law of one teaches through ancient wisdom, traditions such as Egyptian mysticism and alchemy, which were drawn from Atlantean esoterica. In case you didn't know that, that's where it comes from, the Egyptian mystics. Alchemy, it's all coming out of Atlantean esoterica. In fact, it is argued by some that Thoth was an ancient Atlantean STO priest who survived the Younger Dryas cataclysm in a Merkabah, I would imagine, to then become an Egyptian mystic who taught Atlantean esoterica to the next generation of Egyptian priests. And you could see the logic in that. The Cassiopeians emphasize, what's the time? What's our time here? 6, oh my goodness. Okay. Okay, we're 15. Okay. The Cassiopeians emphasized that Atlantis was not a pure golden age utopia. It was an advanced but ultimately corrupted civilization that reflected the broader polarity struggle of the 309,000-year grand cycle now closing. Atlantis, due to its sheer influence and weighty STS fruits within the local planetary systems, became a center point in the STS galactic economy, like a quartz vein in a gold mine. Gold is often surrounded or surrounds quartz. We acted as a blood energy currency in an already established vampiric 40 empire. And I use that expression of quartz because that's us. We are this exceptional loosh producing being that's like gold to the STS economy of this universe, especially this planetary system. We are like pure gold. And our blood, our energy are the fuels that these psychopaths, that these evil entities feed off of. Do you see? And if you are not aware, and if you don't realize that, you will continue to feed them through your anxiety and through your lack of awareness because you don't know the situation that you're in. This is why they don't want you to know about UFOs. It's going to clue you into the bigger situation that you're in because they got everybody, they got the wool over everybody's eyes because everybody's been taken by egregores. So everyone thinks that we're dealing with just the stuff the media is telling us. No, the media is all lies. The storyline behind what's happening in the US government right now, over in Iraq right now, over across the populations of the world right now, there's a deeper fundamental story that's playing out that is below the surface events that you are seeing. All the events you see are surface. There is an underlying truth behind those events that's motivating those events that is invisible to anyone that is not aware. Which is why I can get the nutty idea, the crazy idea, that no, we're not moving into total world destruction. We're moving into the emancipation of the human species. That's why I can have such a nutty idea like that, because I see the deeper truth that's underlying the events we're watching. Atlantis was permitted and in some ways engineered to develop as part of the long-term 4D STS management of this planetary-wide loosh system. Atlantis served as a testing ground for high technology genetic mixing, of course, including the Kantekian infusion and societal control systems. It very much looks like Atlantis was a way station allowed to develop, so to act as a hub for human loosh, 3 to 4D communication, and galactic transport of genetics. And folks, remember in the video that preceded this, and I'll play it at the end of the deal here. Remember the testimony of the Marine that said that he went to this secret location and they were hauling off kids in UFOs. Where do you think they're taking those kids? Not to Earth. Not to Earth. Off-planet human body trade system, which I have already told you guys about. And I've said that I believe that that has been the case. And what do we have now? What do we have now? Just like they had in Atlantis, just mentioned there, a system of basically selling off bodies, live human bodies to other species because we're so rich with this loosh. We're so rich with this energy that these 4D creatures crave. And we are in a situation, this is why the government, the CIA, does not want you to know what's really going on. They have been running a program for decades and decades and decades to systematically offload human beings to aliens in exchange for tech. That's not just located to the local planet Earth. We're being offloaded to other planets, friends. This is what you can't, quote unquote, can't know about. That the real reason they're allowing us to even exist on this planet is by what we give them in our loosh, not because they love us. It's the same with the CIA. They're not here to help you. They're here to farm you. It is likely the Native American and Parenthas societies were very well normalized to aliens as part of their civilization, since they were ruled by Kantex for 50,000 years. There must have been some kind of breach that caused the controllers to completely and utterly wipe out a well-established 50,000-year proven, fully extractable, Earth-sized loosh crop. The final destruction of Atlantis was not a single natural disaster. It involved multiple planets, possibly a Venus fly-in or fly-over, as you guys have heard about in some of the conspiracy talks, the moon, and was carried out over many years of time. Hyperdimensional beings interfered and destabilized the planetary energy grid system alongside Martian and lunar installations. The aftermath alone from a single Younger Dryas meteor would have required years of recovery and atmospheric restabilization. Other theories are of an Earth tilt and crust split that sent Antarctica down into the Atlantic. It's hard to describe the level of destruction and coordinated effort that was undertaken to totally destroy Atlantis, as basically much of the life that was on Earth died as a part of the annihilation of Atlantis. The destruction was initiated through some pathways, the same pathways that destroyed Kantek: internal corruption channels, nefarious use of crystal technology, and development into full STS exploitation. Oddly, the story of Atlantis is framed as a success from STS perspective of efficient harvesting and technological development, with a cautionary tale of the unpredictability of a civilization overly advanced in technology and awareness. Eventually, established STS energy pathways generating consistent loosh are compromised as the secret gets out. That's what's happening now. Right now, we see the larger farming dynamic in play being dismantled in real time. That's you're finding out about the lies like the vaccine and COVID. To this day, a human society has never been allowed to know the truth in mass to the level we are experiencing at this time. And that should tell you right there, folks. That might be our last slide. That should tell you right there, folks, that we are in a different situation than the Atlanteans were or than any other human society before us, because we are finding out what they are doing. They don't tell people this. They don't let the farm animals know what they're doing, just like the cow farmer doesn't go tell all the cows or convince the cows, hey guys, just want you to know you're all going to the slaughterhouse. That's why you're here. That's why you're eating. That's why I feed you what I do. Everything is to set you up, to fatten you up. It's because you're all going to the slaughterhouse. Do you see how when you tell conscious, aware 3D beings like us that we are in that situation, can you kind of see how we ain't going along with that plan? We ain't doing that. We ain't going down that road. As soon as you find it out, now you know. Now this tells you why they hide everything from you. That's why the CIA doesn't tell you anything. That's why they hide all their MK Ultra work. That's why the KM you were to never know. And essentially, we don't know the top names. Still don't know. We just know the names that they have allowed us to know, like Rockefeller and Astor. They allowed us to know those names. But the true mafia is behind even the names that we've been allowed to know, because you're not in a system of transparency. You're in a system of harvesting you and usurping your power. Let's go to questions. Oh my God, we have over 1,000 comments. This is unbelievable. This should be very interesting. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show the comments in the thing. And Shan, whoever else is here, if you guys have a question that you guys think I need to, here we go. Here's a question. Hi, Mythological Muse. So honored to be learned, whether through discernment or by facepalm truths, to have such a passionate teacher. Oh, thank you, Mythological Muse. I appreciate that, love. Who gives us a full, mind-blowing brain coffee. And oh my God. I've never heard of that expression. A brain coffee enema and parasitic mind cleanse. Nice. Mythological Muse, I love you. That was hilarious. I didn't see that coming. A brain coffee enema. That is fantastic. I gotta integrate that one. That one's really good. That's one of the best I've ever. That's fantastic, Mythological Muse. Thank you for that. A brain coffee enema. A brain enema. That's just fantastic. Okay. Yeah, they're all connected, my friend. They're all connected. They're all tied in. They're all tied in. Okay, let's go down the bottom and see if we got any. All questions in caps. Chuck. Hi, Jay. How will all this evil end if most of the world are still STS? Through shock and awe, my friend. The same way that if you have left Christianity, the same way I left Christianity, the same way someone leaves a religion, the same way someone leaves a company, a successful company that's doing really well. Something is revealed to you that shocks you, and the shock brings you into an awareness that gives you the strength to flip. That's what happened when I had cancer. The shock of having something inside of me that is eating me, that has no mercy and wants to eat me as fast as it can. And the shock of having something like that living in your life and eating you every day, right, will put your perspective into a range of view that you've never had. And when you have that different perspective, it's like the person who finds out that all the kids are being kidnapped by the Catholic Church and raped and murdered. When you get that perspective, you're like, oh my God. And it completely changes everything that you've ever thought. Sorry, I got a cough. Hang on. Sorry. It's the perspective that does it, Jay. You don't quote unquote argue a person out of religion. You must render to them how their religion undermines their mind. Does that make sense? Okay. Good. Okay. What is this? I want to talk with you for my channel, please. Heck yeah. I received 2 letters this week from individuals that want to have a talk with me. And I just want you guys to know I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do that. There just has to be a connection, a vibe, and I'm happy to talk to you. And so what I typically do is just set up a talk where we can just talk on Zoom. And after talking with you, I'll decide if it's something that could be used to help people, could be used to expose people to bigger and deeper truths through talking about different stuff with you. And so, yeah, I'm happy to have a conversation with you for sure. Chuck, hi Stacy. Ali Carter spoke of underground black goo. Yeah, I know about the black goo. That is parasitic. It is. As it feeds, it turns them into the form and arm. It takes over the mind. The black goo takes over the mind. The black goo is an intelligence. It's an AI intelligence that is on this planet, and it takes over the human mind. I've read, or I should say, I've watched many interviews of people who have interacted or know about the black goo. And the black goo is basically AI in physical form, and it's extremely dangerous. The black goo is extremely dangerous. The people that eat the black goo will die. It takes over your mind. Chuck, should the coming metamorphosis be better compared to a butterfly breaking out of caterpillar, or compared to the phoenix? Right? Yeah. Those are metaphors for transformation. And what we're going to experience, high verbal, is the transformation of the society. Okay. And that happens through each individual person's transformation. So as we participate in saving lives, as people save their own lives, as people participate in their own metamorphosis, the collective then naturally transforms. And this is how the collective, we as the collective, transform the society into the butterfly. We do that through our own hard work, our own self-analysis, our own dedicated effort to expand our consciousness. And this is how we save ourselves, and this is how we save one another, is through our own awakening and awareness. And it very much is the metaphor of the butterfly, because we have been living in the caterpillar life, the grounded life, and just eating and so on and so forth, right? And then the metaphor of flight, the metaphor of feeding on nectar rather than leaves. You see, you're leaving the mundane, you're leaving the finite, you're leaving the ground plane, and you're flying. And this is the mind free. This is the mind that has loosed from the egregores that have cocooned it into a certain way of living, right? And so the transformation of the mind is what transforms the body. So when I change my perspective, I change my reality, right? So when I change my ideas about the world, I change the world itself, because the world becomes what I think it is. Do you see? An awakening is the one who takes flight, who are no longer, that individual is no longer locked into the hardcore 3D polarity. They participate and enjoy it and love it for sure. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But they're not tied to it. Yeah. Brilliant. This is brilliant. I love this conversation. This is fantastic. What a great question, Hyverbal. I love you. Fantastic. Here we are. The Aquarian Sage. Oh, I like that name. Yes, it would be. Aquarius is the pouring out of knowledge, which is love. The pouring out of water. The pouring out of truth. That's why my card, a transformation card, is the star card. The star card is the picture of the individual that's pouring out the water, and they're standing on both the water and the ground planes, which means that they move between the water and earth smoothly and naturally. This is the picture of the Gemini, and Aquarian is right there also. And that these are individuals that can walk both the subconscious and the conscious, the good and the evil, the light and the dark, the male and the female. These individuals can cross these planes without trying. That's the pouring out of the knowledge. They have the knowledge. They're pouring that knowledge out into the world, because this is the transformative spirit that they bring to the world through the love that they give to the world. Fantastic, Aquarian. Fantastic. Awesome, Fortune. Hello. Chuck, absolutely amazing information. Do you believe Atlantis caused a breakage in our current continents? Yes. Love you. Amazing night. Thank you. Happy to see you, and my heart is with you during a tough night. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I've had good energy tonight, more so than I thought I did, because of what's happening in the family. So I'm really feel encouraged, and thank you for that very much. But yes, plate tectonics and the earthquakes and so on and so forth, those all affect. Oh, thank you. I appreciate those all affect our situation. Hang on. Sorry. Lost my train of thought here. Yeah. Do you believe that? Okay. So when the tidal waves occurred and the Earth's crust was under pressure and duress from all of the surface activity, as well as electromagnetic activity, as well as the striking of the meteors, this caused cataclysms and earthquakes. And one of the theories, Fortune, is that Atlantis sunk. It followed a plate down into the ocean, into the Atlantic. But I personally think, no, it moved and so on and so forth, and maybe did move, a few dozen feet or so one way or the other. But my thought is that the release of all of the freshwater ice that capped the entire top of the Earth, or most of it, was what caused the mass global flooding that buried those cities. Like when you go to scuba diving in some of these areas in the world, and there are like roads that are underwater, there's pyramids that are underwater, there's statues underwater, an area where you would, like if it was land, you'd be walking around, and they're all under the water. It's what I think is that the whole sea level of the Earth rose probably 600 to 1,000 feet, in my opinion. 600, 500, 600,000 feet, somewhere around there, and buried the Earth, portions of the Earth. And I think Atlantis was one of those. We'll look at these slides next week, but I'll show you here. I'll show you some slides I had with me. We are about to get to. But this here. Now, if you look there at the Canary Islands, and later in the talk I talk about this, but the Canary Islands right there, there's thought that Atlantis is off of that coast, or there more in the middle where you see where it says Astoria. And that island right there in the direct center of the Atlantis, you can kind of see the makeup of it there. Here's another shot. This is from the work that Epstein was doing was off of Cuba. If you see Cuba there, the work that Epstein was doing in the submarine was north there in the Bermuda Triangle, and then also to the west, where I can't see that word, it's fuzzy, but where that point comes, just follow Cuba all the way over around the top and then over to the left there. And then right at the end of that island is where Epstein was trying to get rights to be able to go and scuba dive there. Stage. Sorry, hang on. Yeah, and this all ties into Atlantis. We just didn't get to those slides tonight. We got a long way through. We almost got all the way through, but I'll just continue on next week, and we'll have some additional Q&A. But anyway, yeah, great question. Good stuff. Let's go back to comments here. Okay, good. Okay. Any more caps? All caps is the ones I'm going to respond to. Yeah. I wouldn't call it the Nephilim DNA, but it might be. It might be. It's an interesting comment there, Johnny Come Lately. I do think, though, I think the black goo is intelligence that's been put into liquid form through AI means. And so I wouldn't consider the black goo a being. I would consider the black goo a free radical or a darkness-inducing technology. Yeah, here. That's very right. That's very true. They claim it was because IR used to be the pole star in ancient times. Yeah, could have been. We could have had an Earth flip also. We're coming out of a pretty wicked situation, so anything is on the table. Anything is possible. Let's go here. Here we go. Okay, I'm trying to find a question. I'm looking for caps. Happy to answer questions. Just looking for caps here. Where did the black goo come from originally? That's a good question. I think it came from aliens. I think it comes from STS sources. I really wish I had it. About 15, it might have been 20 years ago, I saw an interview with a guy that was the most knowledgeable black goo I've ever seen. The video's long gone. I tried to find it many times. In fact, I tried to find it when I was doing the KM series, but I couldn't find it. But his education on the black goo was incredible. Yeah, it's a real substance. It's a real thing. Right on. Glad you made it. Glad you made it. That's great. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I completely agree. The black goo, if you eat it, takes over your mind, transforms you into a technological bot. Hi, rulers. Welcome back. Will there be two worlds in the future, one with 4D and one with 3D? Possibly. I think that the scenario of this wave is a time when the final culling is taking place. And the people who are ready for 4D and are ready and have exhausted their 3D experience and want to go to 4D, I think right now it's just simply a matter of aligning to STO, and you'll either leave this planet or you'll leave 3D and go 4D. I think it really is an opportunity of change. And then those that don't want the awakening, they don't want an awakened world, like they want the world like they were taught. So they're looking for the right religion. They're looking for the right God. They're looking for the right narrative. Those ones aren't ready for awakening. They just want an old world redone. They don't want an entirely new world. And since nature gives you what you want, for those that are locked in the old mentality, the old religion, the old ways, the old spirituality, are going to get that because that's what they want. And so they'll go to another world, or this one, that's still 3D, and they'll have all the challenges and they'll face all the same things that they, or similar new things that they faced here. There's no development. They've got to develop. You merit transition. It's like the caterpillar merits becoming a butterfly by eating a ton of leaves. If the caterpillar doesn't eat enough leaves, they won't merit. They won't be able to transition into the butterfly. They have to eat enough leaves. And it's the same thing with wisdom, love, knowledge, the portions of the human experience that can't be put into words. The point here is to come into relativity and accord with those. And then you live on a plane that's in that spiritual sense. That's what the Buddhists were talking about, where you live 2 inches off the ground, but you're still in the world. That's the sense. That's the person who's ready. They're ready to graduate. And you let nature know, you set up karma the way that it comes off of you based on your choices, based on your behavior, your free will, right? So if you want to leave this planet and graduate from this 3D nonsense that we all live in, you have to change your mind. You must change your perspective, and that's your job. No religion is going to do that for you. No one's going to come down and help you. No one's going to save you. None of that stuff. You have to do it yourself. You can certainly find inspiration from others. You can certainly find catalyzing from others, like we do here at Nature Creature. But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you do it. You do it. No one else can do it for you, and you don't want anyone else to do it for you. So I think right now we are still in the morphing phase, and what exactly happens to the earth is up to us, to be honest with you, rulers. I really do. I think what happens to the earth at this point is up to us, because we are in a free-willed universe, and we have free will. And your awareness is opening up, and so your will is going to change, your perspective is going to change, your behavior is going to change. And our perspective and our behaviors, when these things change, we change the world. That's how we stopped COVID. We changed our perspective, we changed our behavior, and we stopped that egregore. We'll have to do the same thing with religion. You have to change your perspective, you have to change your understanding of the world, and then you'll be able to leave the religion. And this is communicating to nature, communicating to the energies, right? That you're higher resonant. You're growing. You're ready for graduation. You've left the egregores. You've left the narratives that were handed to you by authorities. You've engaged your own STO awareness, and you're doing it yourself. Yeah. And so then the world will become, it will change. It will adjust. But we determine that, rulers. And I think it's open still, to be honest with you, my friend. I do. And I think that if we hadn't woken up, I think we'd already be done. I think the world would have already been destroyed. Everyone would have gotten the shots. Everyone would have been locked up. Everyone would have fallen for the lies and egregores. People would have stayed locked in religion, and we'd have just been wiped out. But because the population is awakening, and because we're no longer accepting the answers that they're giving us, and we're no longer going along with the plan that they've handed us, we're changing everything. So I don't think you can answer that question just yet, rulers. I don't think it's fully determined, to be honest with you. And I think it's going to be determined by our behavior, by our perception, by how we change as individuals. Okay. Hi, Gretchen. Oh, where'd you go, Gretchen? Here you are. Hi, Gretchen. Chuck, a friend of mine, tuned in tonight and said you were interesting, but could only listen for a little bit because it was intense. She's waking up. Much love. It's all good, Gretchen. I know I'm passionate, love. This was one of the problems that I had when I was on Facebook, is I just sometimes get a little bit too passionate. That kind of just goes with being an iconoclast. I don't mean to be too harsh or anything like that, but it kind of goes along with being an iconoclast and a heretic. You feel really passionate because it was those aspects that you left that are really the driving force now, meaning awakening from those. And so sometimes I can get a little bit too much. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be too intense. I don't mean to be too intense. I can get passionate because I care about this stuff. And I care about you guys a lot. What is this? Hi, Jay. Chuck, I've come to the realization that nothing I say or do can ever wake up my close family. That is correct. Who are deeply entrenched by religion. Yes, sir. Yes, that's correct, Jay. Will I be held accountable? No. Oh my God, Jay, no. No, not at all, friend. No. No, it's not like that. Really, you're only accountable for yourself. And I mean accountable in the sense of how much did you grow? How much did you awaken? And you're accountable in the sense of How aware are you? So that when you die, you have a pretty good grasp of what's going on. You have a pretty good idea of the direction you want to go. You have realized a life that you might not have a ton of wealth, you might not have a ton of success, but you're fulfilled. You're satisfied. You don't have leftover baggage or deeds you got to get done. You're leaving this space in peace. You have accepted the wrongs that you've committed. You've owned up to those things. You've tried to change in ways that, or attempted to change in ways to better yourself. You've put forth effort to better your environment and local society. You've risked. You've taken chances and have taken on ideas that maybe aren't so mainstream, and you've grown from those ideas. You've been harmed and hurt by others, and you've been able to work past that stuff and forgive and move on and just go on with your life. You're not hanging on and holding on. This is the person that's ready for change. I'm trying to talk common sense with you so that the afterlife and the life in general is not filled with just esoterica and like, okay, I got to figure out this metaphor. Okay, I got to figure out this connection. Okay, I'm trying to reach this reasonable space that we all can understand, which is just, where am I sitting in life? Do I got a ton of stuff that I never did and I'm totally wanting to do it? Have I ruined a bunch of relationships that I can never get back and I'm regretting that and I'm wanting to try and retie those ends or to try to make amends there? Or maybe something happened with a spouse or a child that caused their demise or something, and you were involved in that and you really caused harm to them and you haven't been able to work through what brought that about and forgiving yourself and so on and so forth. Well, if you're living like that, you've got all kinds of baggage. And when you die, that stuff's going to be first in your mind. Like, okay, I totally want to make this right, or I want to see this person, or I want to connect with this other, or I didn't get this done. You got a ton of baggage. And if you die with a ton of baggage like that, and a ton of stuff that you're hanging on to and wish you had, and if only it could have been kind of a thing, you're coming back, man. You're attached. You're attached. That's why Buddhism is obsessed with detachment. The whole point to graduate from this reality here is detachment. Not in the sense of just numbing. No, not at all. Exactly the opposite of that. You've detached through the sensorial. You've experienced, you've risked, you've thought differently. You've challenged the world, right? You've created turbulence, right? This is the person who's really lived. And that's the only person that's going to be able to find enough fulfillment, find the knowledge, find the awareness, find the perspective to graduate. You're not going to graduate sitting in your room just reading the Bible all day for 30 years. There's no graduating there. You got to go out and participate. You got to go out and give yourself. You got to go out and risk. You got to go out and love. You got to go out and experience all that life has for you to fulfill this spiritual experiencer that's inside you that wants to experience. You see, and so it's a process of giving oneself away. And this is how you leave this reality, because you experienced all of that, and now you go to experience an even deeper sense, Are you okay with the past, Nancy? I don't mean to upset anybody. I don't mean to upset anybody or drive them away, but yeah, it's just, I'm just very passionate. Here, let's see what Gretchen said. Yes, that's okay. I warned her. I love it, but learning that others have to wake up on their own. Yeah, and I'm sorry. I sometimes can come across too strong. I'm especially strong when it comes to Christians, and I can say things that they really don't like to hear. And I know that if I had heard them and I wasn't ready to awaken, I would have shut me off also. But the Christian who's ready to awaken, the religious individual that's ready to learn something new, that's ready to take on a new challenge, they'll be able to handle someone who's passionate because they're ready. Yeah, that's a really good insight, Daifun. That's a really good insight. Man, that is really good insight. Thank you for that. The problem is people confuse casual familiarity with deep understanding of a subject and complexities. The way you can see through someone's thinness of that is how well they connect different stories to each other. That's one of the things I have done tonight, is I have tried to connect these attitudes and ideals that come out of Atlantis and tie them into the systems, attitudes, ideals, capture systems, and so forth here on Earth. and to show these parallels, and then to also tie those into different individuals that have had ideas about this kind of stuff, like morphogenesis with Dr. Sheldrake. You can take, which has nothing to do with this Cassiopean thing, but you can take the technology that you've learned in regards to morphogenesis and resonance and frequency and energy, and you can then back apply that into the history, into the psychology that comes out of Atlantis, and you can begin to link that then to our human experience now. This is the individual you want to listen to, because they can take basic knowledge and then elucidate it in such a way that everything connects. That's why it's been so beautiful, our study of the Cassiopeians. It's taking all these studies that we did in Zen and Rosicrucianism and tarot and so forth, and it is tying them all together in an even bigger history, so that all these little things that we've learned along the way, I mean, how many times have I mentioned Buddhism in the last 3 days? We can align these things along the way, so that it's like, oh my God, now I really have a better understanding. My perspective is so huge, because I'm incorporating knowledge from Rupert Sheldrake. I'm incorporating knowledge from Atlantis. I'm incorporating knowledge from the Cassiopeians. I'm incorporating knowledge that comes out of egregores and religions that teach you, the deeper sense of how you're tied together. And you can begin to understand, oh, those are the traps. Those are the realities. Oh my goodness, this is the technology that links it. That's the person you want to talk to. That's the person you want to talk to, because they're not just isolated into one thing, but they know a variety. It's called a Renaissance individual. They know a variety of different things and can tie these things together to make sense. And this is teaching. When you can take a regular subject matter and not only apply it to your daily, but apply it to other things that you already know to make better sense of them. This is when you learn. This is when you learn. This is when you can take all these different antithetical perspectives of your life and tie them all together into an understandable story. And when you have that, you have gold. You have gold. You have gold. And this is true. That is correct. Race and culture are two different things. That is correct. I would love to be on Danny Jones. That'd be fun. I love all these guys that I have on here. I love it that they ask questions. I may not agree with everything Joe Rogan says, but I love it that he asks questions, and I love it that he brings up subject matter that needs to be brought up. I think all of that is very good. This is interesting. Hi, Prophet. My mom is in my care now. Okay. She's she's a descendant of two powerful families in India. Okay. One good and one evil. Okay. How do I protect her? Or what is this symbolically when we are caring for a package of human knowledge? That's an interesting way to put it. Okay. I would say the best way that you can love and protect your mom is obviously through meditation and sending her good energy, obviously, but have conversation with her, mind expanding conversations with her. Try and broaden her perspective so that she can also see deeply enough the truths that are within her bloodline, within her blood, that she has gotten from these families, because she has these potentials. It's interesting that you say one good and one evil. This really harkens to that's what we have in us. We have psychic centers that can be latent psychic centers that can be serving us in a good way. And then you can have latent psychic centers that don't serve you, that actually harm you. And they're just waiting and latent. Like if somebody can make you angry and then can make you bitter, they're opening up a psychic center that is causing you to be out of your own control. Because if someone else can make you angry, they're controlling you. You see, and so if you are aware of these kind of psychic understandings in your mind, you can better guard yourself. The better you can guard yourself, the better then you can pass on your knowledge to those that you love through your own experience. So share with her your strengths, share with her how you have grown, share with her how you see the world more differently and more cleanly. You see through its surface layer. And get her on that line of thought, that line of talking that's below the surface. This is what I can't do with my own dad. My dad can't get past the religious world, because my dad doesn't want a world that doesn't contain Jesus. He only wants a world that has Jesus in it. He won't accept any other world. And so he's limited to that scope. So when I try to talk to him, about scopes that are bigger than religion, bigger than Christianity, bigger than Yahweh, and so on and so forth, my dad's head explodes. His head explodes. He can't handle it. He doesn't accept it. He says, no, that's too much. No, I don't want to hear it. And these are all the reasons why it's wrong, and these are all the reasons why it's not good. And you need to become a Christian, this kind of thing. Small mind, enclosed mind. And one of the greatest gifts that you can do as a child is to encourage the opening of your parents' minds so that they have an even wider perspective before they die. And this is a great way that you can protect her, because the best way she can protect herself is by protecting herself, not depending on someone else to protect her. And I know you know that, prophet. So my suggestion is have awareness-inducing conversations with her. Focus on your meditation time when you meditate, sending her good energy and being in a good energy, so that when you are around her, you are sharing that good energy with her and you are bringing her up in love. This is one of the things I try to always do when I talk to any of my family, is I just try to be kind. I try to be kind and communicate that I love them. They never ask about what I do. They don't want to know anything about this kind of stuff, but I just try to be a kind person. And I think you know that too. You probably already know that, prophet. But yeah, having good conversations, mind-opening conversations is wonderful. It's wonderful. I don't know. What is this? Chuck is working with some kind of green energy, probably from nature. King Gerbo. Brill is purple colored. That's funny. Yes, I'm a big believer in cannabis. It saved my marriage and it saved my wife. I love cannabis. I have a deep relationship with it, and it is very helpful. It's just that most people abuse it, and they don't know how to properly use it. And so when you don't know how to properly use it, you'll probably abuse it, and yeah, it'll harm you, just like anything. It's like sugar. It's really good, but if you abuse it, it'll harm you. Barriers to getting through to people: beliefs, pride, ego, denial, skepticism, cynicism. Us mere mortals really struggle to penetrate all that. Yeah, that really ties in well to this Semitic infusion: pride, ego, denial. I think skepticism is good, but it can be used for bad. Cynicism, same way. I think beliefs are harmful. I think you're better off living on faith than belief. I think the more beliefs you have, the more anxiety you're going to generate. The more faith you have, the less anxiety you're going to generate, because faith is the opposite of belief. Faith requires no belief. In fact, faith is anti-belief. Yeah. So yeah, to break those kind of barriers, a life of faith is the best idea. Let's go to about 7:30. Let's go for another 5 minutes, and then I'll play the postlude. Chuck, love that. I merit my growth change. Yes, you do, Fortune. Exactly. Therefore, I affect the change of others based on my... Exactly. Thank you, Fortune. That will be your motivator for you affecting the change of others, is going to be the motivator for meriting your own growth and change, and vice versa. It's because STO works together. STO brings about the love of others, brings about their love, which then brings about more love, and so on and so forth. This is why STO is so important. STS isn't like that. STO is the vampiring of others, but not STO. This is very good. Human collective nature. We merit our freedom. Free will can be used for transition. Exactly. Exactly. Hey, I'm glad that you're happy. So glad you're happy. Yeah, we're probably getting a lot of questions. Hi, Joanne Fax. She's a real sweetie from Facebook. I know Joanne from Facebook. She's really sweet. There's no need to be sorry about your passion. Thank you. If by being your authentic self offended other people, you can't prevent that. Just keep being you. Thank you, love. That's very kind of you. That's very kind of you to say that. Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate that very much. Look at Polarity, Josh. Hey, buddy. You want to have a conversation, my friend? Let's have a conversation. We were supposed to have a conversation back in April, and I know that you went. Didn't you go to someplace on the planet? You moved or something. So when you get settled back in, dude, let's have a conversation. It'd be great to talk to you again. I enjoyed our conversation last time. We can talk about anything you want, brother. And thank you for being here, Josh. Really, dude, I know you're a busy guy. Thank you for being here and taking the time, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Sincerely, thank you. Thank you, Magnus. Thank you, my friend. I will definitely try to do my best to be fair, but to remain passionate for sure. Yeah. Big, yes, huge hi to Polarity Josh. Really glad he's here tonight. I'm glad to see him. That's fantastic. Yeah, STO service to others. STO service to the self. Service to self. Yeah. Yeah, right on, Polarity. Right on, brother. Glad that you're here. Really honored that you're here. Honest. Yes, flow is key. Fantastic. If you already sent me an email, great. If you haven't, you can send it to chuck@naturecreature.net. That's me. Yeah, right on. We love polarity. Glad to have him here. He's a good thinker. I love his open mind, and I love how he interviews people. I think it's fantastic. I hope so. No such thing as too passionate. I hope so. That's for sure. That's for darn sure. Okay. What is this? Does the New Age? I don't follow the New Age thing. I think that is a psyop, but for what it's worth, has something to do with polarity experience. Yeah, I think New Age is nefarious, to be honest with you. I think it's a dead end. I think consciousness expansion is a better way to go. New Age can offer you some options, can offer you some ideas of pursuing knowledge, but I would never lock into New Age and sort of the New Age teaching. I would just consider it like Buddhism. It's a great thing to look at. It's a wonderful philosophy to study, and you can learn much from it. That's how I feel about Buddhism. And I feel similarly with New Age, though I don't think it has as much meat as Buddhism. I do think it has a few good principles that are helpful. I do. And polarity is part of that. Polarity is part of the human experience, and that's beautiful. Yeah, dude. Thank you for being here, Dublin, Ireland. I am honored that you are here. Thank you for taking the time. I know I'm at an off time there, most likely. So thank you, whatever time of day it is. I'm glad that you're here. And yes, you guys are on the front lines. I have seen some of the rioting and what's been going on there, and it is nothing short of tragic. And I want nothing more than for this world to change ASAP so that you guys are not being oppressed like you are. I'm sorry for the behavior of your government and how the British Empire is treating you. I really want you guys fully independent and doing your thing and not have to be subservient to these evil empires that have really harmed Ireland, Dublin, Scotland, these beautiful places in the world. I'm sorry that the European leadership have done what they have to you guys. You guys should be sovereign nations as far as I'm concerned. Thank you, love. That's my wife, ladies and gentlemen. She's so beautiful. I love her to death. Beautiful heart, beautiful person. Are we about done? We're about done, ladies and gentlemen. It's 7:30. I should probably go ahead and start the postlude. We had a few more slides tonight. We'll get to next week. We didn't quite finish. We didn't quite get to the other ones. I'm not going to show them to you. So the final destruction of Atlantis, that'll be our last slide. So we'll continue our study of Atlantis next week, and we'll continue. We will continue in our study. I've really enjoyed tonight. We've had a huge following tonight. We've been topping 500 most of the night, or about half the night, which is incredible. Yes, thank you very much for that. You can become a member at naturecreature.net. And we have a Zoom every Sunday at 1 o'clock. And so if you have questions, maybe you've had questions tonight that I haven't gotten to, and you want to ask me personally, if you simply become a member, you can come onto Zoom and you can ask me whatever questions that you want. I'm happy to hear you, and I'm happy to have you be a part of it. And we meet every Sunday at 1 o'clock. I also have another channel. I don't know if I have this. Let's see here in my media assets. I also have another channel. Nope, I don't have it listed tonight. Called Chuck the Nature Creature. And let's go to media assets, and I'll tie in. Let's see comments. Yeah, I have another channel on YouTube called Chuck the Nature Creature, and I meet every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. There it is. Look at that, right on time. Well done. Yeah, the mods are kicking it tonight. So that's it right there. I'm on YouTube at Chuck the Nature Creature. Please like and subscribe to that channel. We're trying to grow it. It's my second YouTube channel, and I'm trying to grow it to reach a new and broader audience, and to basically try and expose my work to more people. I've fallen into some pretty tight algorithms on YouTube. And so this is going to provide me a little bit wider swath or range of people to reach. And so I'm meeting, and it's 100% chat. I don't bring any lecture on Wednesdays. Wednesdays is pure chat, and I simply answer the questions. And by looking at the amount of questions we have in banners, which is unbelievable, we're going to have quite a few questions to answer on Wednesday. So I'm there on Wednesdays at 4 to meet with you guys, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again this week. It'll be fantastic. Any last final comments or words you guys got? I'm going down to the bottom, at the very bottom right now, where it says Chuck Student. Fortune is number 22. Heck yeah. You are number 22. That's you. Yeah, I've just been disappointed. There's no meat there. The New Age has a couple good ideas, but there's no real meat there, in my opinion, like there is in Buddhism. But to each his own. To each his own. Clueless, I love you, buddy. I love you, man. You've always got such a great attitude and spirit here. Thank you for the positivity you bring here. Thank you, friend. Appreciate that. Faith is the realization and notion of what can't be put into words or believed. So to have faith in something, there's no substance to have to put into words. Faith is a spiritual understanding. Belief is a mental understanding. These two things don't mix. And so faith is something that comes to you outside of words, outside of any kind of picture that you could tell somebody. Faith is realized in experience. Faith is realized by the calling, the sense that you have that you didn't choose. It's faith, like if you walk into a space that's unfamiliar and you get a creepy sensation and you're not exactly sure why, like nothing that you see is creepy, nothing that's going on is creepy, you just got a creepy sensation. Okay, that's faith. There's just something, you don't know what it is, can't put it in words, that's caused you to have a feeling about something and you feel passionate about, like I'm getting out of this space. The same way, if I walk into a forest and I have this sense of love, and I'm getting this sense of love from the trees, and I'm getting a sense of love from the animals, I can't put any of that into words, but I'm experiencing it. And so I have faith in my experience, my emotions. I can't hand them to anybody. I can't give faith away like I can give a belief away. Faith is something that comes from within for no reason at all. Doesn't have to be in any belief or any of that. It just is there. It's just there, and it pulls you emotionally. It's really hard to explain, but you take all belief out of faith to understand faith. Faith has nothing to do with belief. The more I can tell you about my faith, the less faith I have. Because faith can't be put into words. You can't hand faith to anyone, but you can hand a belief to someone. I can teach belief to someone. I can't teach faith to someone. Makes sense? Makes sense? You're welcome, April Kitten. I love you guys. Here's the postlude. We'll go ahead and play the postlude. I could go on these questions forever, so we're gonna stop here. Love you guys. We'll call it a night. Thank you for being here. Here's the postlude. Love you guys. I will see you next week, and I'll see you at Zoom. Hopefully at Zoom, and I will also see you hopefully on Wednesday. Okay, add to stage. There we are. Very good. See you guys next week. Love you. This is a great prelude. You're going to dig this. That's tragic. Yes. And you have people who are starving on the street, and then you got the people that are promoting the vaccines that offer them a meal to get a vaccine. It's tragic. It's sad. It's so sad. They're completely advantaging the hunger and sorrow and suffering of another to put a poison into their body. That tells you how horrific and horrible are the controllers that run this world. This lays it out to you.
Maxwell and Atlantis, and how that basically helps us to decipher Jeffrey Epstein's fundamental motivations on a more esoteric and occult level. So those are all sources that I drew from to compose this piece. And then of course the title of the piece, Ocean Outlaw, comes from a book called Outlaw Ocean, which is written by Ian Urbina of the New York Times. And this guy, this New York Times reporter, basically spent months on a pirate ship learning about international piracy and how the extraterritorial waters, how the international waters that are outside the jurisdiction of any one nation state are used as a territory for various extrajudicial activities. Okay, and Ghislaine Maxwell was fascinated by this guy's initially series of articles in the New York Times, which were then subsequently adapted into this book, Outlaw Ocean. And during her days running the Terramar Foundation that she set up, she actually interviewed Ian Urbina herself. And, if you can manage to dig through the piles of sex trafficking garbage that there are on the internet, you might find the needle in the haystack of Ghislaine Maxwell's interviews with Ian Urbina, which are very revealing, I think, of her motivations and her outlook. But I think the salaciousness of the, madam sex trafficker, underage prostitution ring narrative has been used to cover up what's really going on, and that it is fundamentally a diversionary tactic. When you're a very successful, well-connected businessman, and your interests align with the interests of an intelligence service or with the interests of a country that has a powerful intelligence service, you can be a witting collaborator and sort of facilitator for that agency. And I think, in fact, that's what Jeffrey Epstein was. And we can get into we'll go back and get into this in detail. But as I understand it now, even more so than when I wrote that piece, Ocean Outlaw, I think that Epstein was a sort of witting collaborator and high-level facilitator, both for the CIA and for the Mossad. I don't think he was an agent or an asset of either of those agencies. We've discussed, how the moon is hollow and there are like overlords, managing the socio-political systems of Earth from the moon, and, Atlanteans hiding out under Antarctica, and, the Nazi angle in terms of the whole UFO phenomenon and so forth. But there's something about the Epstein scandal which connects those very high level, or you could say very deep level operations to a much more mundane, scummy stratum of human life, right? In a way that's particularly disturbing and also dangerous. Dangerous from a legal standpoint, and dangerous in terms of how much of it involves organized crime. I mean, we know what mafias do.
Yes.
Okay. So there has yet to be an interview that I've gone into where I felt uncomfortable about the subject matter. This is the first one. So if people notice, a slight, Cheney-esque parsimoniousness and restraint, that's why. It's not a subject matter I really wanted to talk about. But here we are. Okay, so yes, I met Jeffrey Epstein on one occasion.
Stephen locked the doors.
Folks, we have a Jewish mafia in this country, okay? Like, have you seen Godfather? The character that was called Hyman Roth in Godfather, remember that? The Jewish mobster who's very close to the Corleone family and did business with them. That guy who's portrayed as, Hyman Roth in Godfather is actually Meyer Lansky. Meyer Lansky, he was from Eastern Europe originally, but he was a New York mobster who was in the casino business and had a lot of developments in Las Vegas and then also in Miami.
Cuba, right?
He was involved with, the Corleones and elements of the CIA in trying to bring about regime change in Cuba because he had lost casino assets in Cuba,
Right.
and wanted to change the regime so that he could open up Cuba economically again, right? Anyway, Meyer Lansky is a New York Jewish mobster with an extensive crime syndicate, okay, with many tendrils. And he used to like to recruit smart Jews from Brooklyn.
Mr. Lansky, what does the name Jewish Mafia mean to you?
You know, I never heard that until I read it in the Israeli newspapers. Why, it's most ridiculous.
Are there many Jews in the gambling business?
Well, when you say many, you'd have to judge by percentage. I think if you took the percentage of the gambling business in the United States, took the Jews, you would find them maybe in that proportion.
Why is it said that you are the head of the organized crime in the United States?
Well, it's the same principle that started the other gossip. That's most ridiculous. It's the news media again. It's the follow-up of the first thought. It was never said about me before years ago. All this came about just in the last few years. I didn't know as I was growing older it's going to get worse.
Is there an organized crime?
Is there? I have no knowledge of it.
Are you a religious Jew?
No, I'm not a religious Jew.
And what
But
are
I am a Jew. In my heart.
Jeffrey Epstein's a Coney Island kid. He's a smart Jew from Brooklyn, all right? And when he got involved in the late 1970s, Meyer Lansky was still alive and still recruiting. He died in 83, I believe. Now, here's the point I want to make, though, okay? Is all going back to Epstein and the deep state and so forth.
Yeah.
Is this, that clearly what happened was a deal was made between, at that point, a losing, collapsing German Reich and American military industrial intelligence people to absorb the elite of Nazi Germany and move their projects either here or to other places that we control effectively, large parts of Latin America. And therefore, the American deep state at its deepest substratum is the Fourth Reich. It's an occulted Reich. And the people in it never changed their mentality. So, for example, you have this account from Michael Herrera, the Marine, who was in Indonesia.
Yep.
And he witnessed basically an American flying saucer land in the middle of the jungle where a bunch of special forces guys with no proper insignia who spoke
Kidnapping
American
kids.
English were taking kidnapped kids and putting them on board this flying saucer, which is probably built by Lockheed or Raytheon or some such corporation. Now, you see, whoever, that was, what was that, like a decade ago? Something like that?
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah.
The mentality of whoever's running that program and manufacturing these craft and fielding them is the same mentality of the American eugenicists who created Nazi Germany to begin with. You know that eugenics comes from here. Hitler was playing catch-up. All the Germans who created the German eugenics programs were saying, look, these Americans have like eugenics programs in, 20 different states. In our country, it happened on a state level because of the structure of our Constitution. But, the Supreme Court never deemed it illegal. And so we had this very advanced eugenics program by the 1930s. It had begun in the 1890s. And all the aristocrats in America were for it. All the top judges were for it. All the top politicians were for it. The heads of all the universities were for it. They're all ardently pro-eugenics people. I document this in my book, Closer Encounters, in the chapter titled Nordic Breakaway Civilization. And I show how the idea of a Nordic master race comes from the United States of America. And it was copied by Nazi Germany. And the American elites who believed in this ideology created Nazi Germany in the first place. They're the ones who organized it, financed it, structured it. And then in 1945 to 47, they brought home all the chickens who had roosted, for all those years in that field laboratory that we set up, together with, uranium that we put in the bomb dropped on Hiroshima that was, enriched at Auschwitz. Okay, so one very important thing to understand in terms of Epstein and these accusations about, Jewish intelligence penetration in the United States and so forth is that the deep state of this country is Nazi. So you're a Jew who grows up in Brooklyn, right? Epstein's from Coney Island. And maybe at some point you meet Meyer Lansky, who's recruiting exceptionally intelligent and, how can you put it? Shrewd, maybe ruthlessly intelligent, young Jewish people. And, you wind up getting introduced to somebody like Donald Barr at the Dalton School, who belongs to this deep state CIA power structure. And Donald Barr introduces you to a bunch of other people. Dalton parents get you set up with investment banking firms and so on and so forth. And you start to understand, especially as somebody who's into science fiction and frontier thinking, was Epstein, absolutely was. Obviously, he read Donald Barr's sci-fi book, all right, because he modeled certain aspects of his operation on it. But just generally, Epstein was interested in the most fundamental scientific questions, like, for example, conquering gravity. One person that I neglected to mention at the outset in terms of a source for my research on Epstein is Eric Weinstein. Eric Weinstein has done a lot to expose Epstein's interest in anti-gravity. He was obsessed with it. He brought all the top physicists from all the leading institutions in the world, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, MIT, the French equivalents of those academies, together at a conference that was titled Conquering Gravity. And we have the roster of the people who spoke at that. And he brought some of these people to his island, and he took some of these scientists also out in the submarine, the Atlantis submarine, to study gravitational anomalies.
Jeffrey did?
Yeah, and Ghislaine Maxwell, she was the submarine pilot. Down to study gravitational anomalies in what we call basically the Bermuda Triangle. He would take physicists down there to study that because he's like, okay, if gravity doesn't work the same way here, maybe there's something here that's a key to understanding how to conquer gravity. So he was interested in these things. So you have these interests from, early on, and you start to see how the world works. And you start to see what you can gain access to and what you can't gain access to, okay? Now, another very important element of this story is, Epstein's relationship with Robert Maxwell, which then leads to his relationship with Robert's daughter, Ghislaine Maxwell. Robert Maxwell, by the way, is a fake name, okay?
Right.
It's entirely made up. He was born Jan Ludwig van Hoch, and he was from a town, kind of peasant town that has crossed borders like multiple times because of the changing borders in that part of the world. At one point, it was part of Ukraine, and I think at the time when he was born there, it might have been part of Czechoslovakia, which is going to be relevant because when he comes from a dirt poor family, like, peasants basically. But he was exceptionally intelligent and resourceful and apparently very, courageous and dashing person. He became a special forces intelligence operative during World War II, fighting against the Nazis as a resistance fighter. And so the fact that he was in Czechoslovakia is relevant because remember, again, the Skoda works, Hans Kammler's facility where they were building the Bell was also in Czechoslovakia. And in the first phase of the defeat of Nazi Germany, when military intelligence operatives were clearing out German sites all across the Reich, he participated in that. And at that point, he made up a fake name for himself, Ivan de Maurier. I think it was based on some cigarette brand he liked to smoke. And so he's operating as a military intelligence guy in the area where the Bell was being constructed and helping the Allies to like examine German sites and clear them out and stuff. And he makes it all the way to Britain. He becomes actually, I think he might have gone back in Czechoslovakia and operated in that area later, because at one point late in the war, he makes it to Britain through France, and he becomes basically an MI6 operative. Okay, they recruit him. And I guess he learns English very quickly, very fluently. Eventually, he became a British politician. So, and adopted the name Maxwell to fit into, British high society more effectively. So he gets recruited by MI6 after having worked as a sort of freelance military intelligence guy, and then having been a member of the French resistance for a while, which is interesting because, I believe Ghislaine Maxwell was born in Paris and is originally French by nationality. And then later she winds up getting a degree in French literature. That's what she studies in university. So he was a member of the French resistance against the Nazis. And then he winds up being recruited by MI6 and settles down in Britain, where eventually he develops these corporations and becomes a British politician, right? Now, for whatever reason, and I could speculate as to why, his experiences, during and immediately after the war compel him to take over the Springer Scientific Journal Publishing Company. There's this company, it's still called that to this day, but he took over Springer, which published most of the top scientific journals in the world, and he amalgamated it to, subsumed it under this company he called Pergamon. And why did he pick this name, Pergamon? Well, everybody talks about the Library of Alexandria, but there were many cities, not many, there were a few major cities in the classical world that were known for their libraries and like as places of science and erudition and technological innovation and so forth. And one of them was Pergamon.
Throne of Satan.
Well, the Christians demonized it as the throne of Satan because, like the way the Christians skinned Hypatia of Alexandria alive. Hypatia was the guardian of the library at Alexandria and the head of the academy. And, under Bishop Kirill, the Christians skinned her alive.
What?
A Christian mob attacked her, and she was the first person to be skinned alive and then burned as a witch. Okay?
What was her name?
Hypatia of Alexandria.
Hypatia?
Yeah, it's the first witch killing in Christian history.
Whoa.
The woman was the equivalent of we don't even have it's like, imagine if she were running Harvard and, Brookhaven National Laboratory at the same time.
Right.
She was, as a woman, the head of the scientific establishment of the world at that time. So they made an example out of her. Women have no business.
What year would that have been?
In the early 400s, I believe. When Alexandria and Pergamon and Corinth and other centers of learning in the ancient world were lost, we lost about 98% of the knowledge that the West had at that time. Okay? Studies have been done to show this, from classical references to texts that no longer exist.
And 99% of the text that was in the library was Greek.
Right.